Chapter 821. The Devilseal Tablet's Deterrent Force. Obviously, Pei and who possessed an acute perception, faintly noticed the minute changes in the aura on Zishang's body. If Pei and knew that the incomplete soul that seemed to be belonged to a martial emperor stage expert was hiding within Zishang's body, and the incomplete soul was temporarily possessing him, causing him to possess an increase in strength of 4 levels, then perhaps he wouldn't be bewildered. Whoosh! Along with the origin energy on Zishang's body surged, the energy of the heavens and the earth roiled in the sky above him to finally converge into the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth. 80 ancient horned dragon silhouettes. Is this really the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth from Zishang only mobilizing his origin energy? Many people cried out in astonishment as they looked at the 8 ancient horned dragon silhouettes in the sky above Zishang. Condensing the silhouettes of 80 ancient horned dragons by drawing out the energy of the heavens and the earth solely by way of origin energy was the symbol of a 6th level void interpretation stage martial artist. I truly never imagined that Zishang is actually a 6th level void interpretation stage martial artist. Wait, Feng Tianwu asked him to execute some sort of secret technique earlier, then a black-colored flame brand appeared between Zishang's brows. After that, he revealed a cultivation at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage. Could it be that he'd only capable of possessing this cultivation after executing his secret technique? It's probably like that, but this secret technique is truly too abnormal to actually allow a 2nd level void interpretation stage martial artist to instantly possess a strength at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage. The surrounding spectators were shocked by Zishang's secret technique. Secret technique? At this moment, even the 3 monks from the Empyrean Temple were shocked by the changes that happened on Zishang. After executing his secret technique, Zishang's cultivation is actually capable of being equal with mine. Zhang Yan stared fixedly at Zishang as his expression became slightly serious. After joining the emotion-severing sect and possessing his current cultivation, he'd recalled his past on many occasions. Of course, he didn't recall the wishful one-sided love he had that was unbearable to recall, and he instead recalled the various figures that he'd met in the past. Amongst them was the other 4 who were one of the 5 great young masters of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom like him, and then it was Duan Lingtian. As far as he was concerned, with his current cultivation, then no matter if it was the other 4 of the 5 great young masters or Duan Lingtian, they were bound to be left far behind by him. Yet now, when he saw the 6th level void interpretation stage cultivation revealed by Zishang, he deeply realized that he was too conceited. Elder Ghost, kill her. At the same time, an anxious voice ceaselessly resounded in Zishang's body, and it was precisely the voice of Zishang. Presently, Zishang was precisely being controlled by Ghostfire's incomplete soul. Right when Ghostfire controlled Zishang's body and intended to kill Feng Tianwu, his figure that was just about to flash out had instantly stopped on the spot. His listless and dim eyes were instantly suffused with traces of terror. All of this was only because he saw Feng Tianwu taking out a broken stone tablet unhurriedly, and that stone tablet was slightly trembling now as if it had sensed something. Damn it, why is the Devilseal tablet in her possession? Subsequently, a ghastly and aged voice resounded ceaselessly within Zishang's body. Zishang, you go play with her yourself, if you can't, then just admit defeat. Duan Lingtian actually passed over the Devilseal tablet to her. Damn it. In the next moment, the flame brand between Zishang's brows vanished completely. Zishang's soul returned to his own body. Big brother Duan really planned thoroughly. A wisp of a smile suffused Feng Tianwu's beautiful face when she saw this scene. The Devilseal tablet in her hand was something Duan Lingtian had passed to her last night, and he asked her to take it out and scare Zishang with it once the black-colored flame brand appeared between Zishang's brows. At that time, Zishang would take the initiative to admit defeat. I admit defeat. Zishang's depressed and bitter voice sounded out like a shocking tremor that caused everyone that was anticipating the battle to be dumbstruck. Admit defeat? Why did he admit defeat? This was what most the people present were puzzled and bewildered about. After Zishang revealed a cultivation at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage, practically all the remaining people besides Duan Lingtian thought that Feng Tianwu would admit defeat, and even if she didn't admit defeat, she would be defeated by Zishang. However, reality played a huge joke on them. After Zishang revealed a 6th level void interpretation stage cultivation, he was bearing down menacingly a moment ago, yet was terrified in the next moment and even admitted defeat directly. What's Zishang doing? If he wanted to admit defeat, then he should have done it since the beginning. Why did he execute his secret technique and then admit defeat? Isn't this a waste of my shock? Why did Vice Fort Master Ning take such a trash disciple? He's too useless. He possesses a cultivation at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage, yet doesn't even dare make a move against Feng Tianwu. The clamorous sounds in the surroundings were one-sided, and all of them were condemning Zishang. Zishang. At the same time, the expression of Ningkan in the sky above the combat arena went completely ominous as his enraged voice transmission pierced into Zishang's ears. What the FCK are you doing? Didn't I tell you that you must kill Feng Tianwu? Master, I'm unable to kill Feng Tianwu due to some reasons that I'm not at the convenience to say now. But I guarantee that I'll surely give you an answer. Zishang, who was prepared since long ago, replied when he heard Ningkan's voice transmission. I hope you can do as you said. Otherwise, even if you're my personal disciple, I'll still punish you heavily. Ningkan's expression eased up when he heard this, yet he still warned Zishang. Don't worry, Master, Zishang replied, and then his chilly gaze stared at Feng Tianwu as he said via voice transmission, Feng Tianwu, I truly never imagined that Duan Lingtian would pass that thing to you. If it's possible, I hope you can transfer possession of it to me, and I'll agree to any request of yours for it. It's even to the extent that I can exchange for it with the 8th level fire concept fragment my master bestowed to me, so long as you're willing to give me that broken stone tablet you just put away. Zishang's words were filled with temptation. But unfortunately, Feng Tianwu would utterly not be fooled. You're dreaming. Instantly, Zishang's expression was livid, yet he was helpless against Feng Tianwu. Without the assistance of Elder Ghost, he was utterly unable to be a match to Feng Tianwu, who'd comprehended 4th level fire concept. Zishang's challenge to Feng Tianwu ended with him admitting defeat, so both of them exchanged number tokens. The possessor of the number 2 token became Feng Tianwu, and the possessor of the number 7 token became Zishang. After Feng Tianwu obtained the number 2 token, she returned to Duan Lingtian's side and returned the Devilseal tablet to Duan Lingtian at the first possible moment. At the same time, she said with surprise, Big Brother Duan, what exactly is this broken stone tablet? Zishang actually wants to use an 8th level fire concept fragment to exchange for it with me. 8th level fire concept fragment? He really does think wishfully. Duan Lingtian looked at the distant Zishang and laughed with ridicule, and then he said via voice transmission, Tianwu, I'm not sure what exactly this thing is, but you just have to remember one thing, and that is I won't exchange this stone tablet even if someone gave me 109th level fire concept fragments, let alone a mere 8th level fire concept fragment. It's so valuable. Feng Tianwu's beautiful face was covered in shock when she heard this. Even though Duan Lingtian didn't clearly say what the broken stone tablet was and what its worth was, yet Duan Lingtian's words had allowed her to realize this stone tablet wasn't simple. Lingtian, thank you. Feng Wudao clearly saw the movements between Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu and naturally guessed that the reason Zishang admitted defeat, so he couldn't help but thank Duan Lingtian. Uncle Feng, we're all good friends, so there's no need to be so courteous, not to mention, I only lifted a finger. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Yes, we are. Feng Wudao laughed joyfully as he looked at Duan Lingtian, then looked at his own daughter, and a spurious smile was revealed on his face. Duan Lingtian directly disregarded this, whereas Feng Tianwu was embarrassed to the point her beautiful face flushed as if blood would drip out from it. Imperial uncle, did you notice? The Emperor of the Darkened Dynasty spoke with a serious expression. Yes. Bai Nanyan nodded and said with a fearful expression, the reason Zishang admitted defeat would because Feng Tianwu withdrew that broken stone tablet, the saint weapon that Zishang said could provide an amplification of 100%. I don't know if this broke stone tablet is a saint weapon or if it can provide an amplification of 100%, but I've discerned that Zishang is extremely afraid of it. During the dynasty martial competition that day, Zishang lost after Duan Lingtian took out this stone tablet. Earlier, the reason Zishang directly admitted defeat when Duan Lingtian challenged him was presumably because he was afraid of that stone tablet. Besides that, he was originally intending to fight when facing Feng Tianwu, but he directly admitted defeat again when Feng Tianwu took out the stone tablet. The Emperor of the Darkened Dynasty nodded. Perhaps Zishang had the intention of using our Darkened Dynasty's imperial family to help him seize that stone tablet since the beginning. But unfortunately, Big Brother had gone missing because of that stone tablet, and it's extremely like that he has been killed. Bai Nanyan sighed with an extremely complicated gaze. The sounds of discussion sounded ceaselessly in the sky above the combat arena. Practically everyone was condemning Zishang. Why did Zishang suddenly admit defeat? Zhang Yan frowned, and then he looked at Pei An, who was beside him. Master, have you discerned anything? Pei An shook his head. The three monks from Empyrean Temple had puzzled expression now as well, and they were unable to wrap their heads around Zishang's actions of admitting defeat. The discussions of the surrounding spectators only gradually stopped when the possessor of the number 3 token Qifeng ascended the arena. After Qifeng ascended the arena, his gaze locked onto a graceful and beautiful figure. The possessor of the number 9 token, Yi Ling. Yi Ling was the strongest expert in the younger generation of the Darking dynasty. Her cultivation was at the 3rd level of the void interpretation stage and had comprehended 2nd level void interpretation concept, causing her strength to be extraordinary. But unfortunately, since she'd encountered Qifeng, she was bound to lose. Qifeng was the 9th prince of the Darky dynasty, and he revealed a cultivation at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage right off the bat, allowing him to crush Yi Ling domineeringly. Yi Ling didn't have the slightest ability to fight back when facing him, and she lost in a single move. Fortunately, Qifeng held back and didn't ruthlessly kill her, otherwise, Yi Ling would die even if she had 10 lives. If I don't utilize my soul skill, I won't be a match for this Qifeng. Duan Lingtian stared fixedly at Qifeng and muttered to himself. 821 Chapter 822, Composite Chain Sword. After Qifeng, it was the possessor of the number 4 token, Qin Kong, that ascended the arena, and his gaze directly locked onto the possessor of the number 10 token, Su Li. Su Li's cultivation was at the 2nd level of the void interpretation stage, and he'd comprehended 3rd level intermediate sword concept and 1st level intermediate water concept. Coupled with the grade 3 spirit sword in his possession, he possessed the strength of 110 ancient horned dragons. Qin Kong was a 4th level void interpretation stage martial artist that had comprehended 4th level void interpretation concept. Not to mention he possessed a grade 3 spirit weapon. Even if he only possessed a grade 4 or grade 5 spirit weapon, he would similarly possess the strength to crush Su Li. Under a situation of such great disparity, Su Li didn't make a move and admitted defeat frankly. The possessor of the number 5 token, Tom Yu, was from the Daryuan dynasty, and his body was robust like a cow. The grade 3 spirit weapon in his possession was a pair of gloves, causing his fists to be like cannonballs, and anyone that was smashed by his fists would be heavily injured to the point of clinging on their last breath even if they escaped instant death. The possessor of the number 10 token, Su Li. Tom Yu challenged Su Li just like the earlier Qin Kong. Su Li had admitted defeat without ascending the arena earlier, so he couldn't refuse Tom Yu's challenge. But just like the last battle, he still admitted defeat straightforwardly. Even though the concept Tom Yu comprehended was inferior to Qin Kong and Qifeng, yet it was a 3rd level void interpretation concept as well, and coupled with his 4th level void interpretation stage cultivation, Su Li was far from being a match for him. It was precisely because of this that Su Li admitted defeat resolutely and didn't waste time. After Tom Yu, it was the possessor of the number 6 token, Lu Yong, that entered the arena, and after he ascended the arena, his gaze flashed past Zishang, O Chen, Yi Ling, and Su Li. He could only choose one of these 4 people. Su Li. In the end, he chose Su Li. Su Li was challenged for the 3rd time. Haha, Su Li, your number 10 token is really a hot potato. Zhang Shouyang looked at Su Li and couldn't help but joke. Even though Duan Lingtian didn't say anything, yet a smile suffused his face, and it was sufficient to show that he was slightly taking pleasure in Su Li's misfortune like Zhang Shouyang. Su Li laughed bitterly, yet he didn't admit defeat this time and simply ascended the arena to stand in confrontation with Lu Yong. Lu Yong was the crown prince of the Darming dynasty, the personal disciple of Vice Fort Master Feng Wei, and his cultivation was at the 3rd level of the void interpretation stage and had comprehended 2nd level fire concept. Besides that, Lu Yong had also comprehended 5th level elementary wind concept and 3rd level elementary lightning concept. Lu Yong's spirit weapon was a grade 3 spirit fan that only possessed a frame. When he exerted all his ability, his strength was comparable to the strength of 105 ancient horned dragons, and when compared with Su Li's strength that was comparable to the strength of 110 ancient horned dragons, it was inferior by 5 ancient horned dragons. There seems to be something off. Logically speaking, Lu Yong's strength is inferior to Su Li, and he ought to be afraid of Su Li. Yet now, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he faintly felt something was amiss when he saw the fully confident Lu Yong. Ha! Under the gazes of everyone present, Lu Yong chose to attack first and seize the initiative, and he exerted his full strength, causing the grade 3 spirit fan in his hand to transform into a flaming fan that emitted an extremely scorching aura. For a time, the airflow in the sky shook and gave rise to a wave of hot waves when they encountered the flaming fan in Lu Yong's hand, and it spread out to all directions and blew towards everyone in the surroundings. Duan Lingtian felt a dense scorching aura assault his face, and he instantly noticed the changes in the fire concept in Lu Yong's fan, causing his face to be unable to refrain from going grim. Su Li, watch out. He has already comprehended third-level intermediate fire concept. Duan Lingtian hurriedly sent a voice transmission to warn Su Li. Meanwhile, as the flaming fan in his hand soared through the sky, the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth abruptly arose in the sky above Lu Yong, whose entire body was coiled by flames like a large fireball as he charged towards Su Li. 115 lifelike ancient horned dragon silhouettes condensed into form. Swish! After receiving Duan Lingtian's warning, Su Li, who was prepared and had transformed into an enormous sword, soared past Lu Yong, who surged over like a giant fireball. An ear-piercing sword howl resounded out as fierce sword concept was emitted, and it caused many people who were nearby to feel a chill run down their spines. It's useless. A difference of 5 ancient horned dragons is sufficient to allow me to easily crush you. The surging large fireball was like a cannonball as it shot out towards the enormous sword, and at the same time, Lu Yong's sonorous voice resounded out. Is that so? Su Li's voice wasn't the slightest bit afraid, and the enormous sword he'd transformed into, while combined with his water concept and sword concept, abruptly shot into the sky when he finished speaking. HMPH. You won't be able to flee. Lu Yong's cold grunt resounded out as the fireball that emitted waves heat shot into the sky to pursue Su Li, and he seemed as if he wouldn't stop until he caught up to Su Li. Swish! The enormous sword charged into the sky, yet the fireball behind it grew closer and closer. The difference of a strength of 5 ancient horned dragons caused the speed of the enormous sword to be inferior to the giant fireball. What does Su Li plan on doing? Zhang Shouyang had a puzzled expression when he saw this scene, and he was utterly unable to guess the purpose behind Su Li's actions. As far as he was concerned, Su Li's current actions would undoubtedly completely expose him before Lu Yong, causing him to face danger at any moment. Duan Lingtian frowned as well. He kept having the feeling that it was impossible for Su Li to make such a low-level mistake. Could it be that this fellow Su Li still has a trump card? Suddenly, Duan Lingtian took a glance at Sword 13, and after he noticed Sword 13 had a calm and collected expression, this thought arose within his heart. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian's gaze lit up as he stared with concentration at the enormous sword that was ceaselessly being chased up to by the giant fireball. Perhaps Su Li would really be able to give him a pleasant surprise. Swish! The enormous sword continued charging up, whereas, the fireball grew closer and closer. Suddenly, a wave of ear-piercing buzzing sound out, and it caused everyone to be unable to help but look over with concentration. The airflow in the air at the source of the sound flashed out and seemed to form circle after circle of ripples that spread ceaselessly towards the surroundings, and it was an extremely magnificent sight. But everyone paid no attention to this as their gazes had all descended onto the enormous sword that had suddenly changed directions. The enormous sword turned around and the tip of the sword aimed towards the giant fireball that was charging up into the sky. Swish! Suddenly, everyone noticed the enormous sword shook suddenly before swiftly plunging down, and it actually pierced straight at the giant fireball that was charging towards it. The enormous sword plunged down and carried the strength of 110 ancient horned dragons. The two of them were about to collide, and if nothing unexpected happened, victory and defeat would be revealed right away. Su Li's about to lose. This was the thoughts in the hearts of most people present. After all, the difference of 5 ancient horned dragons was like a chasm that was difficult to surmount. Swish! Swoosh! Finally, the enormous sword and giant fireball collided together, causing intense and dazzling sparks to shoot out, and it caused numerous balls of flames to condense into form. Under the gazes of everyone present, the enormous sword and giant fireball collided with each other, and because of the difference in level of concept, the power of water that countered fire was unable to be realized. In the blink of an eye, the giant fireball remained unchanged, yet the enormous sword had been weakened by a small portion. Bang! An enormous bang resounded out. The enormous sword seemed to have given up resistance, whereas, the giant fireball's strength became even stronger, and it fiercely collided with the enormous sword, causing the enormous sword to shatter. Right when everyone thought that Lu Yong, who controlled the giant fireballs, had defeated Su Li, who controlled the enormous sword. Impossible! An exclamation of shock sounded out abruptly, and it was filled with disbelief. It's Lu Yong's voice. Instantly, everyone couldn't help but look over with concentration. With a single glance, they saw that when the enormous sword shattered, Su Li who was within it held a sword with both hands as he continued plunging down. At this instant, Su Li's entire strength had been channeled to the sword in his hand, and the 110 ancient horned dragon silhouettes that had gradually dispersed because the enormous sword had shattered earlier condensed once more. Swish! The 3-foot-long blade descended straight down, and when the giant fireball had completely exerted its strength on the enormous sword and didn't have enough time to regain its strength, the 3-foot-long blade penetrated the fireball that was in a weakened state and descended towards Lu Yong's head. Stay your hand! Feng Wei's expression went grim when he saw this, and he shouted out explosively and wanted to make a move to save his personal disciple, Lu Yong. But unfortunately, it was too late. Swish! Su Li and his sword plunged down from the sky, and the matchlessly sharp blades followed along Lu Yong's head to pierce into Lu Yong's body. As soon as Lu Yong died, the giant fireball dispersed and vanished without a trace. After he pulled out his sword, Su Li, whose clothes were tattered and had blood in the corners of his mouth, revealed a smile. So what if it was the difference of 5 ancient horned dragons? He, Su Li, still annihilated Lu Yong under his sword. Su Li! Feng Wei shouted out coldly as the clothes he wore swelled up, and he intended to take revenge for his personal disciple, Lu Yong. But unfortunately, he hadn't made a move when he was stopped by Ning Can. Feng Wei, calm down. Don't forget that life and death is disregarded in the ranking battles of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. As the Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort, if you make a move because of your own personal intentions, what position would you place the Skywolf Fort in? As he finished speaking, Ning Can's tone became grim. Feng Wei calmed down when he heard this, yet his eyes still arose ghastly hatred as he stared fixedly at Su Li. So long as he had the slightest chance in the future, he would absolutely not let Su Li off, even if Su Li was the personal disciple of Sword 13. Even though in terms of natural talent and comprehension ability, Lu Yong couldn't be considered to be at the top amongst the group of young geniuses that were participating in the martial competition this time, yet because Lu Yong's character was to his liking, so he'd always been extremely satisfied with this personal disciple of his. Yet now, his personal disciple was killed right before his eyes, how could he not be enraged? As expected of the extremely famous heaven-rank sword skill in the Blade Sect, the composite chain sword, it really is extraordinary. Wei Ming's eyes lit up and couldn't help but praise. The middle-aged monk that stood by Wei Ming's side, Wei Jing, focused his gaze onto Sword 13. Vice Sect Master Sword, could it be that this young man is your disciple? Baldy Wei Jing, even though your strength isn't much, needless to say, your eyesight isn't bad. Sword 13 nodded. Wei Jing laughed bitterly. He was an 8th level void transformation stage martial artist at any rate, yet he'd become someone with a strength that isn't much when spoken about by Sword 13. Of course, he knew clearly in his heart that Sword 13 possessed the qualifications to say this. According to his knowledge, the current Sword 13 had already broken through to the 9th level of the void transformation stage, and he was far from being able to compare with Sword 13. Perhaps only his senior brother Wei Ming by his side had the strength to fight Sword 13. 822 Chapter 823, The Fate of an Innate Spirit Body. Composite Chain Sword. Duan Ling Tian muttered to himself as he looked at Su Li, who'd become the center of attention after killing Lu Yong. Earlier, when Su Li abandoned the enormous sword and allowed it to be destroyed by Lu Yong, Duan Ling Tian had noticed the flash of movements by Su Li. After abandoning the enormous sword, he mobilized his sword in the first possible moment and killed Lu Yong, who didn't have the time to react. Lu Yong had a strength that was more formidable than Su Li, yet a single mistake costed his life, pitiable. Even though this composite chain sword Su Li cultivated is only a low-grade heaven-rank sword skill, yet based on his execution earlier, it's obviously already cultivated to the mastery stage. Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. Sure enough, Su Li was a natural-born sword cultivator. Good. Amazing. Meanwhile, the surrounding spectators that were shocked by Su Li's actions had successively recovered from their shock, and they couldn't help but exclaim loudly. As far as they were concerned, the sword skill Su Li executed earlier was marvelous. So what if there was a difference of 5 ancient horned dragons? He was still able to kill his opponent while possessing a weaker strength. Whoosh! Under the gazes of everyone present, Su Li flew out to descend by Duan Lingtian's side in a short moment, and then he said with a smile, Duan Lingtian, I've helped you take revenge, how will you repay me? If it was anyone else, then since the person was the personal disciple of Feng Wei, perhaps Su Li wouldn't strike a killing blow. But Liu Yong had once made a move against Duan Lingtian during the first round of the selections, and according to what Zhang Shouyang said, Duan Lingtian almost died at the hands of Liu Yong. It was precisely because of this that he struck a killing blow at Liu Yong. Duan Lingtian was a friend he'd known since his younger days, and Duan Lingtian had even been generous with aid when he needed help, so Duan Lingtian had an extremely special status in his heart. No matter who it was, one who wanted to kill Duan Lingtian was his enemy. What repayment do you want? Duan Lingtian smiled. All right, I'm only joking. Su Li shook his head and smiled. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as a wisp of gratefulness appeared in his eyes. Actually, since the moment Su Li killed Liu Yong, he'd guessed the reason behind Su Li killing Liu Yong. It was precisely for the sake of taking revenge for him. Otherwise, Su Li was entirely capable of heavily injuring Liu Yong, yet had utterly no need to kill him. Because there was no benefit to Su Li by killing Liu Yong, and it was even to the extent that he would offend the Vice Fort Master Feng Wei because of this. This was something that could be discerned from the hateful gaze Feng Wei looked at Su Li with. Duan Lingtian didn't speak of any words of thanks because there was entirely no need. The relationship between him and Su Li didn't require these things that were expressed on the surface. Everything was conveyed within silence. The possessor of the number 6 token, Liu Yong, failed in his challenge of the possessor of the number 10 token, Su Li. Su Li has obtained the number 6 token. Besides that, because of the death of Liu Yong, there's a lack of a participant in the top 10 of the martial competition, so it will be replaced by the possessor of the number 11 token. Ning Kan announced with a sonorous voice. The possessor of the number 11 token was Zhang Shouyang, and he obtained Su Li's number 10 token. As for Su Li, he obtained Liu Yong's number 6 token. Su Li, looks like I have to thank you. Zhang Shouyang originally thought he had no fate with the top 10 of the martial competition, yet who would have known that such a turn would actually occur, and it allowed him to replace a position in the top 10. Moreover, Zhang Shouyang didn't intend to agree to the challenge of anyone because he knew that there was still a certain amount of distance between him and the others in the top 10. Even if he fought, he would only bring embarrassment to himself. So why not stand on the spot and wait to obtain the rewards of the top 10? The fourth round of the selections continued. The possessor of the number 7 token, Feng Tianwu, seemed to have transformed into a fairy of flames as she arrived in the central area of the sky above the combat arena in a short moment. Editor's note. Apparently the author forgot she's got the number 2 token now, but he corrects it in the next chapter more or less. Her gaze descended onto the possessor of the number 9 token, Yi Ling, at the first possible moment, and she challenged Yi Ling. Yi Ling took a deep breath and flew out to stand in confrontation with Feng Tianwu. Now, after she witnessed Feng Tianwu's true strength, Yi Ling didn't dare underestimate Feng Tianwu in the slightest. Even though Feng Tianwu's cultivation was inferior to her, yet Feng Tianwu's comprehension of concept far surpassed her. So, Yi Ling seemed as if she was facing a great opponent when facing Feng Tianwu. The two female young experts stood in confrontation and drew the attention of everyone present. Yi Ling had become famous in the Darking dynasty long ago, and the members of the other dynasties had heard of her. Even though Feng Tianwu was beautiful like a celestial maiden and even possessed an extraordinary strength, yet she wasn't known of before this. But after Feng Tianwu fought earlier, no one dared question Feng Tianwu's strength, and everyone knew that this young woman that was beautiful like a celestial maiden didn't just have a drop-dead gorgeous appearance, her strength far surpassed most of the experts in the younger generation. She was merely at the age of 25, yet her cultivation was at the second level of the void interpretation stage, and she'd comprehended fourth level void interpretation concept. Not to mention a female martial artist, how many male martial artists were capable of such an achievement? Ha! Yi Ling let out a delicate shout as she took the initiative to attack, and the sword in her hand was like a swimming dragon that was peerlessly graceful as it flashed out like a leaf that struck towards Feng Tianwu like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. There seemed to be strands of jade waves and ripples that pulsated and coiled on the surroundings of her sword, and it was precisely materialized water concept. Swish! The sword struck out in a mediocre manner, yet it contained an extraordinary strength. In the sky, the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth condensed into form. 98 ancient horned dragon silhouettes soared down the sky along with Yiling that seemed to have transformed into cats, and they brandished their claws and bared their fangs as they pounced towards Feng Tianwu. Swoosh! Feng Tianwu moved like the wind as she moved swiftly to intercept Yiling. Swish! Her whip that was coiled with flames seemed like a spirit serpent that swung out with its tail, and it fearlessly moved to intercept the sharp sword in Yiling's hand. Whoosh! The phenomenon of the heavens and the earth rose abruptly in the sky and transformed into 100 ancient horned dragon silhouettes, and it was an entire two more than the ancient horned dragon silhouettes in the sky above Yiling. 100 ancient horned dragon silhouettes bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced towards the 98 ancient horned dragon silhouettes and were locked in combat, and they were temporarily equally matched. Clang! The Grade 3 Spirit Whip and Grade 3 Spirit Sword collided with each other, and then both of them shook before backing away at the same time. At the instant they backed away, both of them advanced in unison and struck towards each other. Swish! 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 For a time, sword images and whip image that covered the sky intersected past each other like waves of violent storms, and the two beautiful figures were like the meeting of fire and water as they ceaselessly collided with each other. In the end, it was Feng Tianwu who occupied the advantage, and she pressed on to injure Yiling and obtain the final victory. Yiling breathed heavily as she looked at the beautiful figure in the distance, and her gaze was as complicated could be. Could it be that this young woman that's wearing red clothes and looks like a fairy of flames is one that's favored by the heavens? Not only did she possess a peerless appearance that could be said to be drop-dead gorgeous and cause envy in others, she also possessed a shocking strength. I originally thought that the Darking Dynasty's Yiling could be considered to be the #1 female expert in the younger generation of our 10 dynasties, but now it would seem that it isn't so. The Darkin Dynasty's Feng Tianwu is the strongest female expert in the younger generation of our 10 dynasties. It's still the first time I'm seeing a peerless beauty who possesses such natural talent. The surrounding crowd of spectators sighed with emotion. Oh Chen, the possessor of the number 8 token stood in the distant sky, and he stared at Feng Tianwu with a gaze filled with fear and seriousness. Even though he felt his strength surpassed Yiling, yet it didn't surpass Yiling by much. Once he faced Feng Tianwu, he didn't have sufficient confidence in obtaining victory. It was fine if it was anyone else, but Feng Tianwu was only a young woman at the mere age of 25, and it caused his heart to be filled with bitterness, as a young woman like this had caused such feelings to be aroused in his heart. The fairy of flames flashed through the sky and returned to Duan Lingtian's side. Could it be that the heavens are envious of outstanding geniuses? Sword 13 and Saber 5 looked at Feng Tianwu as they sighed in their hearts. Feng Tianwu was a possessor of the fire spirit body, and it caused them to feel pity in their hearts. Of course, they knew as well that if it wasn't for Feng Tianwu possessing the fire spirit body, it would be impossible for her to possess such achievements at such an age. So that's how it is. In the sky, the sect master of the emotion-severing sect, Pei'an, withdrew his gaze from Feng Tianwu and muttered to himself. Master, have you noticed something? Zhang Yan stood at Pei'an's side as he asked respectfully. If I'm not wrong, this Feng Tianwu is probably a possessor of an innate spirit body. As Pei'an spoke and finished speaking, his gaze seemed to become slightly distant, and he seemed to be recalling something. An innate spirit body? Zhang Yan's pupils constricted as he spoke with astonishment. Could it be an innate spirit body like senior brother Hong? Yes. Pei'an nodded lightly as he spoke with an emotionless expression. But your senior brother Hong is different from her. Your senior brother Hong possessed a lightning spirit body, whereas, she ought to possess a fire spirit body. Even though Pei'an's expression didn't possess any expression since the beginning, yet a trace of sadness flashed past his eyes as he spoke. So that's how it is. Zhang Yang couldn't help but gasp when he heard this, and he sighed as he looked at the young woman who was like a fairy of flames. Because of that senior brother Hong of his, he knew a little bit about the fate of an innate spirit body. Senior brother Hong was supposedly the one and only personal disciple his master had taken before him, yet he'd never seen his senior brother Hong. When he joined the emotion-severing sect, his senior brother Hong was already gone. Supposedly, when senior brother Hong was 30, the energy of the lightning spirit body within his body had erupted, and it caused him to die young. But the natural talent and strength of his senior brother Hong before death was sufficient to cause him to be unable to compare to it and even feel embarrassed of his own inferiority. Supposedly, throughout the past history of the entire emotion-severing sect, the natural talent of his senior brother Hong was something that no one was capable of comparing to, and it could be said to be unprecedented. After breaking through to the void interpretation stage, because of certain reasons, an innate spirit body and unable to consume spirit fruits to cultivate. Otherwise, with senior brother Hong's natural talent, he would be entirely capable of breaking through to the void transformation stage by the age of 30 and escape the fate of the innate spirit body. Zhang Yan sighed in his heart. The heavens envy outstanding geniuses. Zhang Yan muttered in a low voice. Perhaps he was speaking of that senior brother of his that he'd never met, or perhaps he was speaking of the red-clothed young woman in the distance. The fate of an innate spirit body seemed to be something that there was rarely anyone capable of turning around in the history of the Cloud Continent. But once it was turned around, the person would soar into the skies with a single leap to become a genius favored by the heavens. 823. Chapter 824, Soul Skill. Innate Ability. The possessor of the number 8 token, Chen ascended the arena. Chen was only able to choose 2 people, the possessor of the number 9 token, Yi Ling, and the possessor of the number 10 token, Zhang Shouyang. Not to mention Yi Ling had just fought a battle and was able to refuse his challenge with the reason of taking a rest. Even if Yi Ling didn't enter the arena in the last battle, he would temporarily not choose Yi Ling. Presently, he had to preserve his strength and deal with the challenge of the other experts. So, he started challenging from the weakest, as it was undoubtedly the best tactic. The possessor of the number 10 token, Chen's gaze descended onto Zhang Shouyang as he challenged him. I admit defeat. Right when Chen finished speaking, Zhang Shouyang had already spoken out with his admission of defeat, and he didn't hesitate in the slightest. He'd witnessed Chen's strength earlier. A cultivation at the 3rd level of the void interpretation stage and 2nd level void interpretation concept, and it surpassed his strength. So even if he agreed to the challenge, the outcome would be the same. Subsequently, it was the turn of the possessor of the number 9 token, Yi Ling, to issue a challenge, and she could only challenge Zhang Shouyang. Zhang Shouyang admitted defeat. Number 10. Meanwhile, the Vice Fort Master Ningkan looked at Zhang Shouyang and asked directly. Are you willing to be ranked at 10th place in the martial competition? If you are, then no one will challenge you again in the future, and you don't have to waste time admitting defeat. Yes. Zhang Shouyang nodded as he replied frankly. All right. Ningkan nodded, and then his gaze swept the surroundings to descend onto the other 9 people including Duan Lingtian. 10th place in the martial competition has been confirmed, now continue competing for the specific rankings of the top 9. Of course, the people amongst all of you that are ranked at the last can speak out if you're willing to be ranked by the number token in your possession. Presently, the person at the last rank was Yi Ling. But Yi Ling obviously didn't intend to willingly take the rank of number 9. In her heart, she had the intention of replacing the possessor of the number 8 token, Chen. Besides that, she was unconvinced of Duan Lingtian and Zishang. After a round passed, Zhang Shouyang was eliminated, and the other 9 people continued. As the possessor of the number 1 token, Duan Lingtian was the first to enter the arena. Swoosh! His figure was like a hurricane as it arrived in the central area of the sky above the combat arena in the blink of an eye. Number 9. Duan Lingtian's gaze locked onto Yi Ling in the first possible moment. Yi Ling wasn't surprised that she was challenged by Duan Lingtian. Even though Zishang was capable of executing a secret technique to increase his strength to the 6th level of the void interpretation stage had admitted defeat before Duan Lingtian, as far as she was concerned, Zishang only looked the part, but was useless. Otherwise, how could he have admitted defeat without a fight before Feng Tianwu? Duan Lingtian, you have to be careful, otherwise, the most precious number 1 token in your possession is about to have a new owner. Yi Ling reminded Duan Lingtian. I'll wait and see. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly. HMPH. Seeming to have noticed that Duan Lingtian took her lightly, Yi Ling's face sank as her figure flashed out and took attack first to seize the initiative, and the 3-foot-long blade in her hand drifted in the sky as it pierced towards Duan Lingtian. Yi Ling utilized her full strength as soon as she attacked, and she didn't hold back in the slightest. Duan Lingtian stood on the spot and seemed as if he was waiting for Yi Ling's attack to descend onto him. Hiss, 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 comma. The surrounding crowd of spectators gasped successively when they saw Yi Ling's attack came closer and closer to Duan Lingtian, and they felt that Duan Lingtian was being too careless. Yi Ling's sword approached Duan Lingtian in the blink of an eye and was only a short distance away. At the critical moment, a dim light flickered in the depths of Duan Lingtian's eyes. 1,000 illusions. Instantly, Duan Lingtian's vast spiritual force pierced into the soul brand in the depths of his soul, and he directly executed the soul skill that belonged solely to him. In the blink of an eye, his spiritual force constructed an illusory space that appeared out of thin air and enveloped Yi Ling. Does Duan Lingtian want to die? When they saw Yi Ling's sword had already arrived before Duan Lingtian's chest, and it only had to move a little bit ahead to penetrate through Duan Lingtian, many people felt their scalps go numb. At this moment, even the 3 monks of Empyrean Temple were shocked by Duan Lingtian's actions. Isn't he courting death? A trace of a bright light flashed past the eyes of Zhang Yan in the distant sky, and then he muttered to himself. Could it be he wants to utilize that demonic technique of his? Duan Lingtian knowing a demonic technique was something he'd heard Zishang mention more than once in the past. It was even to the extent he'd witnessed it with his own 2 eyes. Demonic technique. Pei An's face remained emotionless when he heard Zhang Yan's mutter, yet the depths of his eyes contained slight astonishment. What's Yi Ling doing? Someone shouted out in surprise, and it broke the silence at the scene. When Yi Ling's sword was about to pierce through Duan Lingtian's chest, it changed direction suddenly and pierced madly towards the sky at the side, causing everyone to be dumbstruck. Has Yi Ling gone mad? She doesn't dare kill Duan Lingtian. Wait, something seems to be amiss. Right when many people were shocked and bewildered, they saw a scene that caused them to be dumbstruck. After Yi Ling moved away her sword that pierced towards Duan Lingtian, she actually turned around and attacked the sky once more, and it seemed as if her opponent wasn't Duan Lingtian but the sky. Many people felt their scalps go numb when they saw this scene. Could it be that this Yi Ling has gone mad? This was the thought in the hearts of most people. Only a small amount of people withdrew their gazes from Yi Ling and looked at Duan Lingtian with surprise and bewilderment. These few people were naturally the 2 vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort and the 3 monks of Empyrean Temple. As for Sword 13 and Saber 5, they'd heard Su Li and Long Yun mention this ability of Duan Lingtian's on many occasions, so even though they felt shocked, they were mentally prepared. Demonic technique. After he finished listening to the description Zhang Yan provided him via voice transmission, Pei An still had an expressionless face, yet he rejected Zhang Yan's judgment when he replied to Zhang Yan. There's no demonic technique in this world. I feel that this Duan Lingtian's ability is similar to a soul skill. Of course, if he isn't an ordinary human and is a variant instead, then this ability of his is extremely likely to be his innate ability. Soul skill. Innate ability. Zhang Yan's expression remained unchanged, yet his eyes were filled with bewilderments. These 2 words were extremely unfamiliar to him. There's a spiritual force fluctuation there. Yi Ling hasn't gone mad, but has been affected by Duan Lingtian. Besides the group of people from Darken Dynasty that weren't shocked by what had occurred to Yi Ling, the members of the other 9 dynasties had shocked expressions, whereas the small amount of inscription masters at the void transformation stage had even noticed a slight clue. Even though they were able to mobilize their spiritual force to affect the spiritual force that enveloped Yi Ling, yet they didn't dare do so. What a joke. This was the Skywolf Fort, and the martial competition of the 10 dynasties was being held now. If they dared interfere, then when the Skywolf Fort was enraged, they would surely have no chance of survival. Swoosh. Under the gazes of everyone present, Duan Lingtian, who'd never made a movement since the beginning and stood without moving like a mountain, had finally moved. Whirlwind. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a gale that charged towards Yi Ling. When facing his charge, Yi Ling seemed to be entirely unaware and still swung her sword to battle the air, and it seemed as if she'd really gone mad. Bang! Duan Lingtian easily moved around to arrive by Yi Ling's side, and then his palm casually struck out to injure Yi Ling and blast her flying, causing her to temporarily lose the ability to battle. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force shook, and he shattered the illusory space formed by his soul skill, Thousand Illusions. Yi Ling's countenance was ghastly pale as she spat out a mouthful of blood, and only after that did she return to her senses. When she saw Duan Lingtian that was calm and collected, her expression couldn't help but go grim. You. In next to no time, the voice transmission of the Darking Dynasty's representative entered into Yi Ling's ears, and she found out what had happened earlier, causing her to be terrified to the point her face went pale. When she looked at Duan Lingtian once more, there was only terror within the depths of Yi Ling's eyes. It turned out that everything she experienced earlier was fake. An illusory space. It's an illusory space. Yi Ling quickly guessed what had happened, and her first thought was whether Duan Lingtian had utilized an external source of strength like an inscription or inscription formation. But with a quick thought, she felt it was impossible. An inscription formation required a fixed location to be established, whereas this was the Skywolf Fort, and even if Duan Lingtian knew how to establish inscription formations, he wouldn't dare act rashly. Most importantly, she didn't notice the aura or fluctuation of an inscription formation or inscription. It was precisely because of this that she confirmed something. The illusory space she faced earlier was executed by Duan Lingtian himself, and it was similar to the soul skill that was possessed by those special demon beasts of legend that possessed extraordinary natural talent. Now I believe that you possess the ability to obtain the number 1 token. Yi Ling took a deep breath and smiled amiably to Duan Lingtian as she took the initiative to cast a flirtatious gaze at Duan Lingtian. But unfortunately, Duan Lingtian only casually nodded at her before withdrawing. This caused her to instantly feel exasperated. To think that she, Yi Ling, the dignified number 1 expert in the Darking Dynasty's younger generation, someone that even the Darking Dynasty's emperor wanted to take as a daughter-in-law, was completely disregarded by Duan Lingtian. But when her gaze unintentionally descended into the distance and saw Feng Tianwu who was chatting with Duan Lingtian, the rage on her face vanished. She felt slightly ashamed of her inferiority before Feng Tianwu. Perhaps only a woman like her is worthy of him. Yi Ling laughed in self-ridicule, and then returned to the group from the Darking Dynasty. After Duan Lingtian left the arena, it was the turn of the possessor of the number 2 token, Feng Tianwu. After Feng Tianwu ascended the arena, her gaze locked onto the possessor of the number 8 token, O Chen. O Chen's cultivation and concept was similar to Yi Ling, but his ability surpassed Yi Ling slightly. Yet in the end, he still lost at Feng Tianwu's hands. The possessor of the number 3 token, Qi Feng, ascended the arena. Victory. The possessor of the number 4 token, Qin Kong, ascended the arena. Victory. Not long after, it was once the turn of the possessor of the number 6 token, Su Li, to ascend the arena, and he challenged and defeated Yi Ling. After Su Li, it was the possessor of the number 7 token, Zi Shang. As soon as Zi Shang entered the arena, the surroundings bustled. Do all of you think Zi Shang will challenge a person and take the initiative to admit defeat again? Ha 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 ha, it really is possible. Secret technique. 6th level of the void interpretation stage. He's just someone that looks the part but is useless. Zi Shang is a huge joke. 824 Chapter 825. The person that wants to take Duan Lingtian as his master. The wave of ridicule in the surroundings entered into Zi Shang's ears, and it caused Zi Shang's expression to be unsightly and livid. The possessor of the number 8 token, O Chen. Because Yi Ling had fought Su Li, Zi Shang could only choose O Chen. O Chen had a casual expression as he similarly felt that Zi Shang only looked the part but was useless. Whoosh. Along with a black flame brand appearing between Zi Shang's brows, another 80 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared once again in the sky above him, and they bared their fangs and brandished their claws while emitting an imposing manner that shot into the sky like a rainbow. However, no one was surprised now, and most people looked at Zi Shang with ridicule as if they were waiting for Zi Shang to lose face once more. But in next to no time, the pupils of these people couldn't help but constrict. Because, not only had Zi Shang revealed a strength at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage, he'd even utilized it. With a single strike, he'd heavily injured O Chen. After spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood successively, O Chen fainted directly before being taken away by the representative of the Darchu dynasty. This time, all the voices that questioned Zi Shang had stopped abruptly. HMPH. Zi Shang looked around at the surroundings and grunted coldly, and he seemed to be announcing his displeasure. No matter what, the strength at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage revealed mightily by Zi Shang to defeat O Chen with a single move had still shocked many people. What secret technique is that? It's too abnormal. No wonder Vice Fort Master Ning took him as a personal disciple. So it turns out that he possesses such a strong ability. As expected of the personal disciple of Vice Fort Master Ning, he's really extraordinary. The various voices of ridicule towards Zi Shang had vanished, and only a wave of praise remained. These people really changed quickly. Su Li frowned. Duan Lingtian smiled indifferently. They're just a group of fence-sitters that will sway wherever the wind blows, so there's no need to care about them. Zi Shang had heavily injured O Chen, causing O Chen to lack the ability to continue battling. It was even to the extent that even though O Chen had recovered slightly after consuming the grade 3 life recovery provided by the Skywolf Fort, he didn't recover completely. In this way, O Chen could only take the 9th place in the martial competition. Yi Ling easily obtained the number 8 token without a fight, and it caused her to feel as if she was dreaming. All of this was given to her by Zishang. Yi Ling's eyes revealed heartfelt fear when she glanced at Zishang. After a short moment, when she recalled how she'd been defeated by Duan Lingtian, Su Li, and Feng Tianwu, whereas she knew she wasn't a match for the other three. She had a decision in her heart, and she looked at Ning Can. Vice Fort Master Ning, I'm willing to be ranked 8th in the martial competition. At this moment, the 10th, 9th, and 8th of the martial competition had been decided upon. The 4th round of the selections continued. Right when Duan Lingtian, the possessor of the number 1 token, intended to ascend the arena, Su Li had called out to him. What? Duan Lingtian looked at Su Li with a bewildered gaze. Meanwhile, Su Li didn't answer Duan Lingtian but looked at Ning Can, who was high above in the sky, and spoke frankly. Duan Lingtian challenges me in this round, and I admit defeat. Ning Can nodded. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly instead and looked at Su Li. Why are you so anxious? I haven't challenged quite a few people. If you ascend the arena, you'll surely not challenge me and Tianwu. Besides that, I want to concentrate on watching you and those 3 fellows in battle. The meaning within Su Li's words was obvious. He wanted to decide his ranking first before properly watching the battles between Duan Lingtian and the other 3 fellows. As for those 3 fellows, they were naturally Qi Feng, Qin Kong, and Tom Yu, and all of them were existences at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage. Subsequently, it was Feng Tianwu's turn. I challenge the possessor of the number 6 token, Su Li, and I admit defeat. Perhaps she was influenced by Su, but Feng Tianwu didn't ascend the arena and directly admitted defeat to Su Li. There was a difference of the strength of 10 ancient horned dragons between her and Su Li, and coupled with the outstanding composite chain sword possessed by Su Li, she didn't have the slightest confidence when facing Su Li. Subsequently, the possessors of the number 3, 4, and 5 tokens successively challenged Feng Tianwu, who'd just obtained the number 6 token, and when facing existences that were even more formidable than Su Li, Feng Tianwu didn't ascend the arena and directly admitted defeat. Since Su Li felt he was inferior to Qi Feng, Qin Kong, and Tom Yu, their rankings rose up by 1 position. Qi Feng obtained the number 2 token. Qin Kong obtained the number 3 token. Tom Yu obtained the number 4 token. As for Su Li, he instead obtained the number 5 token. Feng Tianwu obtained the number 6 token. Zishang obtained the number 7 token. This was the temporary rankings. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian ascended the arena, and his gaze locked onto Tom Yu. I challenge the possessor of the number 4 token. After a short moment, Tom Yu flew out to stand in confrontation with Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, you look gentle and frail, so you should hand over the number 1 token, otherwise, I won't FC King show mercy. Tom Yu grinned, and he seemed honest and straightforward, yet his eyes were filled with strands of bright lights. That will depend on if you have the ability. Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently. Needless to say, Ta Mu's strength wasn't bad, and it was at least able to be considered not bad when compared to Yi Ling, who'd just fought Duan Lingtian. Not only had Ta Mu's strength broken through to the 4th level of the void interpretation stage, he'd even comprehended a 3rd level void interpretation concept. But unfortunately, Tom Yu wasn't an inscription master. Because of this, under Duan Lingtian's soul skill, Thousand Illusions, Tom Yu was directly defeated by Duan Lingtian. Tom Yu had lost without knowing what had happened, and he had a puzzled expression. I've lost. Right when the surrounding spectators were slightly speechless, Tom Yu wiped the bloodstains on the corners of his mouth and looked at Duan Lingtian with glowing eyes as he spoke with an honest expression. Duan Lingtian, take me as your disciple, teach me that ability you just used to defeat me earlier. How about it? I'm not interested. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at Tom Yu before returning to Feng Tianwu and Su Li's side. But Tom Yu followed them. Master, I've decided that I'll follow you from now on. I'll surely learn your ability. FCK off. Duan Lingtian frowned and shouted out with a stern voice, and then his frown eased up as he paid no further attention to Tom Yu. Tom Yu. Right at this moment, the representative of the Daryuan dynasty, the old man with a robust figure, soared into the sky and swiftly arrived by Ta Mu's side before smacking Tom Yu on the back of his head. Slap. After he slapped Tom Yu, the robust old man looked at Duan Lingtian. I hope you can forgive Tom Yu if he caused any disturbance to you. Duan Lingtian nodded. I'm not leaving, I want to follow master, Tom Yu, who was dragged off by the old man, shouted out ceaselessly as he persisted, and he was entirely like an ignorant and unruly child. This scene caused the spectators in the surroundings to be slightly speechless. Duan Lingtian was speechless when he heard Tom Yu repeatedly calling him, Master. Why don't I know when I took Tom Yu as a disciple? Brother Lingtian, I think it's rather good even if you take this fellow as your disciple, in the future, you'll have someone to serve by your side. Zhang Shouyang joked. Duan Lingtian rolled his eyes angrily at Zhang Shouyang, who was taking pleasure at this misfortune. Big brother Zhang, if you want, you can go take him. I want to as well, but the problem is I'm beneath his notice. Zhang Shouyang laughed bitterly. Tom Yu had a similar age as him yet possessed a strength that far surpassed him, so asking Tom Yu to take him as master would undoubtedly be as difficult as ascending the heavens. After this trouble stirred up by Tom Yu, the atmosphere at the scene changed slightly. Ta Mu's intention of wanting to take Duan Lingtian as master looked to be a strange situation that caused one to not know whether to laugh or cry, yet everyone present knew clearly that the reason Tom Yu acted in that way was entirely because of Duan Lingtian's unfathomable ability. That ability was something that even they were filled with curiosity and yearning to. When some of the representatives of the dynasties looked at Duan Lingtian with concentration, their eyes were filled with greed, and they seemed as if they wished for nothing more than to capture Duan Lingtian and interrogate him to find out about the secret of that unfathomable ability. Duan Lingtian, that ability similar to a soul skill that you executed, could it be that it's your innate ability? Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears, and it was precisely Sword 13's voice. Innate ability. Duan Lingtian is stunned. What was that? Under his wonder, Duan Lingtian flashed through the memories of the rebirth martial emperor and finally found out what an innate ability was. It was a unique and innate ability possessed by variants formed from the union in humans and demon beasts, and it relied on spiritual force and possessed various forms. Some were similar to soul skills, some were similar to secret techniques. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly in his heart. He knew that Su Li's master had taken him to be a variant formed from the union of a human and demon beast. Perhaps, it isn't bad to be a variant sometimes, at the very least, I don't have to worry about someone coveting my soul skill, thousand illusion, or even do something crazy. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart and quickly made a decision. Senior, you actually know of innate abilities. Duan Lingtian looked at Sword 13 and evaded the question via a voice transmission of slight surprise. On the other hand, when Sword 13 heard Duan Lingtian's words, he naturally thought that Duan Lingtian had approved tacitly. Moreover, besides that, he was really unable to contemplate what Duan Lingtian had relied on to execute an ability similar to a soul skill. After all, in Cloud Continent, only special demon beasts with extraordinary natural talent were capable of possessing various soul skills before attaining the Emperor stage through their soul brands. The Emperor stage was the Martial Emperor stage and Demon Emperor stage's general name. Only when human martial artists attained the Martial Emperor stage would they be able to rely on their spiritual force to execute spiritual force abilities similar to soul skills against their enemies. Besides Sword 13, the Empyrean Temple's Wei Ming and Wei Jing and the emotion-severing sect's master, Peiyan, had a similar thought. Do you know the origins of Duan Lingtian? Peiyan asked Zhang Yan with a low voice. Yes, Zhang Yan nodded. He's from the lowest kingdom in the Darken dynasty that I was from, and he can be said to be someone from a completely humble origin. The lowest kingdom under a dynasty of humble origins. A person from a tiny kingdom possesses such attainments before the age of 30, unless a person like this is a variant or perhaps obtains some sort of great fortuitous encounter, otherwise it's practically impossible. Peiyan muttered to himself. Besides that, as far as he was concerned, a great fortuitous encounter wasn't something easily obtained. So he practically ascertained that Duan Lingtian was a variant born from the union of a human and demon beast. 825 Chapter 826, The Final Battle. On Cloud Continent, there were many demons that had taken human form after breaking through to the void transformation stage that chose to live in seclusion because of being tired from all the fighting and killing. After they went into seclusion, these demons might even unite with ordinary humans and live to the ends of their lives. As far as Peiyan was concerned, Duan Lingtian's father or mother was probably a demon that had chosen to live in seclusion in a tiny kingdom. What a pity, Peiyan sighed. Master, what are you feeling regretful for? Zhang Yan was stunned. I presume you know the reason I brought you here. Duan Lingtian is so close with Sword 13, so he'll surely leave with Sword 13, said Peiyan. Don't worry, Master, even if our emotion-severing sect doesn't have the addition of Duan Ling Tian, I'll surely obtain a profundity fragment you require from that place. Zhang Yan's gaze was firm, and he emitted a strong confidence. Profundity fragment. Pei An's emotionless face revealed a rare and slight ripple when he heard Zhang Yan. He was only a single step through the threshold away from the martial monarch stage, whereas this last step caused him to be unable to break through to the martial monarch stage for a long time. There were many martial artists like him on Cloud Continent, and it was even to the extent that some martial artists that were even younger than him and had cultivated to this state were unable to break through to the martial monarch stage in their entire lifetimes. All of this was because they were unable to comprehend profundity. Profundity was the permit to step into the martial monarch stage, and so long as one didn't comprehend profundity, one would be unable to become a martial monarch stage expert. Senior brother, you said he's a variant. Wei Jing had a serious expression as he looked at Wei Ming who was by his side and asked. Wei Ming nodded. Besides this, I'm unable to think of anything else. Moreover, there are only two possibilities why he was capable of possessing such a cultivation and ability at such an age. The first, he's a variant. The second, he obtained extremely great fortuitous encounters. But a fortuitous encounter capable of allowing him to possess this cultivation and ability at such an age isn't something easily obtainable. Wei Ming spoke with a serious expression. A variant. The young monk standing behind Wei Ming stared at Duan Ling Tian with a burning gaze as battle intent arose on him. Duan Ling Tian noticed the fierce gaze of the young monk at the first possible moment, and after he met the young monk's gaze, he was shocked in his heart. Looks like besides praying and abstaining from meat, the monks of this world similarly possess the heart of the strong that's unconvinced of the strength of others. Benefactor Duan, if there's an opportunity in the future, then this monk wants to battle you. A clear voice transmission pierced into Duan Ling Tian's ears, and it was precisely the voice of the young monk. Anytime, Duan Ling Tian replied via voice transmission and didn't lose in terms of confidence displayed. After Duan Ling Tian defeat Tom Yu, it was Qi Feng's turn. Presently, Qi Feng was the possessor of the number 2 token. The opponents he could choose were Zishang and Qin Kong. In the end, he chose Qin Hong, the possessor of the number 3 token. Qin Kong and Qi Feng were old rivals, and after he stood in confrontation with Qi Feng, he spoke bravely. Qi Feng, I'll surely defeat you this time. Qi Feng seemed to be extremely calm when facing Qin Kong's arrogance. Both of them were 4th level void interpretation stage martial artists, and they had similarly comprehended 4th level void interpretation concept and possessed grade 3 spirit weapons with an equal amplification ability. As for the other lower level void initiation concepts, they were more or less equal. All in all, it could be summarized with 2 words, on par. When both of them fought with their full strengths, their strength was equivalent, and they competed in combat experience and comprehension of martial skills. Of course, there were also some slight differences amongst them. Both of them fought like a raging flame, and it drew the gazes of everyone. As he gazed at the 2 figures that intersected each other ceaselessly and listened to the waves of sounds of the air exploding, Duan Ling Tian's eyes slightly narrowed as he muttered to himself. Looks like it wasn't luck that allowed Qi Feng to defeat Qin Kong repeatedly in the past. Duan Ling Tian was able to discern that even though the 2 of them seemed to be on par on the surface, yet Qi Feng was more sighted towards being steady and possessing extreme patience. As for Qin Kong, along with the passage of time, he became more and more irritable, and in the end, he even started to reveal some tiny flaws. In a battle between experts, even a tiny flaw would usually become the key to one's defeat. Qi Feng exemplified this point very well. Bang! At the instant Qin Kong revealed a tiny flaw, Qi Feng attacked swiftly and utilized Qin Kong's flaw to crush Qin Kong in one go. In the end, Qi Feng held the bow with one hand and the other condensed arrows, and 2 arrows condensed into form from material wind concept tore through the sky and carried a deafening and piercing howl as it easily penetrated Qin Kong's shoulders. Why is it like this? Qin Kong abruptly stopped moving, and he was slightly in low spirits as he looked at the fresh blood that ceaselessly poured out from the bloody holes on his shoulders. He had lost again. At this instant, Qin Kong was like a zombie as he allowed the blood to spray out of the holes on his shoulders, yet didn't utilize origin energy to stop the bleeding. Only when the representative of the Darken dynasty moved over to take Qin Kong away did Qin Kong's injuries get stopped, yet Qin Kong still hadn't returned to his senses. Qi Feng is calm, patient, and resolute. I hope he isn't an inscription master. Duan Ling Tian took a deep breath. Up until now, there wasn't a single young genius from the 10 dynasties that he could take seriously, and it included Tom Yu and Qin Kong. Yet now, not only had Qi Feng caused his expression to become serious, he seemed to sense a trace of a dangerous aura from Qi Feng. This feeling was extremely bizarre, yet exceedingly clear. The fourth round of the selections continued. Tom Yu challenged Zishang, and the outcome was obvious, Tom Yu lost miserably. In next to no time, it was Duan Lingtian's turn once again. Duan Lingtian challenged Qin Kong, and the illusory space created by his soul skill, Thousand Illusions, enveloped Qin Kong, and he easily defeated him. Qin Kong followed in the footsteps of Tom Yu. If you have the balls, then don't use that shady ability. After Duan Lingtian withdrew his soul skill, Qin Kong wiped off the blood on the corners of his mouth, and then he spoke hatefully to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh when he heard Qin Kong's naive words. The surrounding crowd of people started laughing as well. Qin Kong is a 4th-level void interpretation stage martial artist at any rate, yet he actually spoke such naive words, laughable. Yeah, Duan Lingtian didn't rely on an external source of strength and relied on his own ability, so why can he exert his full strength, yet Duan Lingtian can't? Waves of ridicule entered into Qin Kong's ears, causing his expression to become livid, and he glared hatefully at Duan Lingtian before returning to the group from the Darkened Dynasty. Subsequently, Qi Feng entered the arena. Qi Feng challenged Tom Yu, and Tom Yu admitted defeat. Qin Kong ascended the arena and challenged Tom Yu, causing Tom Yu to admit defeat. No matter if it was Qi Feng or Qin Kong, Tom Yu had always been observing their strengths seriously, and it was precisely because of this that he was extremely clear of the distance between him and the two of them. HMPH. Once I learn my master's ability, I'll fight both of you again, and I'll surely beat the sh*t out of the both of you. Even though Tom Yu had admitted defeat, he was extremely optimistic, and he grunted twice before glancing with a flattering gaze at the violet-clothed young man in the distance, Duan Lingtian. But unfortunately, Duan Lingtian utterly didn't take a glance at him. But even then, Tom Yu still wasn't the slightest bit dejected, and he seemed as if he'd firmly affirmed Duan Lingtian as his master. In next to no time, under Ning Can's intentional arrangement, Tom Yu, Qin Kong, and Qi Feng successively fought against Zishang. Zishang executed his secret technique, causing a black-colored flame brand to appear between his brows, and his strength increased to the 6th level of the void interpretation stage. After that, he easily defeated Tom Yu and Qin Kong, whereas Qi Feng was defeated by him in 3 moves. For a time, Zishang once again obtained the number 2 token that belonged to him. Even though he'd admitted defeat before Feng Tianwu, yet Feng Tianwu was unable to go against Tom Yu, Qin Kong, and Qi Feng, and they'd successively lost at Zishang's hands. So, Zishang once again seized the number 2 token that belonged to him with this advantage. As for Su Li, he was similarly unable to go against Tom Yu, Qin Kong, and Qi Feng, so he refused Duan Lingtian's good intentions of lending the Devilseal tablet to him to defeat Zishang. Even if he was able to defeat Zishang, he would still be unable to shake Zishang's status as the possessor of the number 2 token in the end. For a time, besides Duan Lingtian who still hadn't fought Qi Feng, the ranking of the top 10 of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties was as follows. The possessor of the number 1 token, Duan Lingtian. Number 2, Zishang. Number 3, Qi Feng. Number 4, Qin Kong. Number 5, Tom Yu. Number 6, Su Li. Number 7, Feng Tianwu. Number 8, Yi Ling. Number 9, O Chen. Number 10, Zhang Shouyang. According to convention, Duan Lingtian ought to have fought Qi Feng long ago. However, Ning Can had suddenly interfered earlier and allowed Duan Lingtian to temporarily take a rest and allow the others to decide on their specific rankings before allowing Duan Lingtian to fight Qi Feng. Ning Can's actions caused Duan Lingtian to smell the slight smell of a plot. Even the surrounding crowd of spectators vaguely felt that something was amiss. Why did Vice Fort Master Ning do this? Even Zishang, Qin Kong, and Tom Yu lost at Duan Lingtian's hands. Could it be that he thinks Qi Feng can threaten Duan Lingtian? If it's up to me, this was simply an unnecessary action. Even though Qi Feng's strength is formidable indeed, yet Duan Lingtian's unfathomable ability is something that even Qin Kong and Tom Yu were unable to avoid. Qi Feng is probably not a match for Duan Lingtian. The surrounding crowd of people discussed animatedly, and they didn't feel that Qi Feng was unable to defeat Duan Lingtian. Big brother Duan, I keep having the feeling that something is slightly amiss. Before Duan Lingtian ascended the arena, Feng Tianwu's beautiful brows knit together and spoke to Duan Lingtian with slight fear. Don't worry. Actually, how could Duan Lingtian not have a feeling like this? But he knew that he had to fight this battle. Whirlwind. Under the gazes of anticipation of Feng Tianwu and others, Duan Lingtian seemed to have transformed into a gale that instantly arrived at the central area of the sky above the combat arena. Qi Feng had been waiting there since long ago. For a time, both of them stood facing each other in confrontation. Duan Lingtian, so long as you defeat me or even kill me, then the first in the martial competition is yours. Qi Feng stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian, and his focused and fierce gaze seemed to be able to see through everything. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but exclaim with admiration in his heart. As expected of someone that plays with bows and arrows, Qi Feng's gaze is focused and fierce, and it's not something an ordinary person can compare to. Qi Feng, if I'm not wrong, you ought to be an inscription master, right? Duan Lingtian didn't answer Qi Feng out loud, and he instead asked a question like this via voice transmission. 826. Chapter 827, Soul Skill Defeated. You, how did you know? After Duan Lingtian's voice transmission entered into Qi Feng's ears, it caused Qi Feng to be stunned, and then he replied via voice transmission with slight astonishment. But he was filled with bewilderment in his heart. Besides himself and the members of the Darky dynasty, only the Skywolf Fort's Vice Fort Master Ning and Vice Fort Master Feng knew that he was an inscription master. Not only do I know that you're an inscription master, I even know that Ning can ask you to kill me. Moreover, he ought to have told you that since you're a 4th level void interpretation stage martial artist, then so long as you stretch out your spiritual force, you're entirely capable of disregarding my ability, right? Duan Lingtian continued speaking with an indifferent voice that didn't contain any emotion. Qi Feng was shocked. Never had he imagined that Duan Lingtian even knew this as well. After all, even the other people of the Darky dynasty didn't know, and only he and the 2 Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort knew it. You guessed it. Qi Feng took a deep breath and asked. Yes. Duan Lingtian didn't deny it and nodded frankly. Actually, when Ning Can had intentionally arrived his battle with Qi Feng to be put at the end, he vaguely realized that something was amiss. Along with the passage of time, he realized a problem. The problem was that even though the soul of the expert that seemed to be a martial emperor stage expert in Zishang's body was only a strand of a soul, it was surely capable of distinguishing the strength of his spiritual force when he executed his soul skill. The strength of his spiritual force just happened to be at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage. Amongst human martial artists, besides existences at the 5th level of the void interpretation stage being capable of disregarding his soul skill, Thousand Illusions, an inscription master at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage was similarly capable of disregarding his soul skill. Looks like Zishang has really made every effort for the sake of killing me. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath as cold lights flickered within his eyes, and there was a frightful killing intent faintly contained within it. He believed that even those void transformation stage inscription masters present might not be able to detect the exact strength of the spiritual force he possessed. Only the incomplete soul within Zishang's body was capable of knowing the exact strength of his spiritual force. So, there was surely Zishang pulling the strings behind all of this. As for the purpose, it was obvious, it was undoubtedly because Zishang wanted to kill him. Since you guessed it, then why have you ascended the arena? Isn't it enough if you admit defeat directly? Qi Feng sighed via voice transmission, and his words seemed to contain slight pity. What, you pity me? Duan Lingtian ridiculed via voice transmission. If I'm not wrong, so long as you kill me, you'll surely be able to obtain extremely generous rewards, right? HMPH. Qi Feng grunted via voice transmission. Rewards. You underestimate me, Qi Feng. I admit that after Vice Fort Master Ning and Vice Fort Master Feng found out that I was an inscription master and can counter you, they indeed promised generous rewards and they asked me to kill you. But I refused. I, Qi Feng, have a firm and unyielding character. How can I bend my back because of a few concept fragments? Even though I do indeed need those concept fragments, but there's no enmity between the both of us, so I won't go against my conscience and kill you. Conscience. Needless to say, Qi Feng's words caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to help but be moved. He was naturally able to discern if Qi Feng's words were true or false. Then you. Duan Lingtian frowned and vaguely realized that he'd very likely accused Qi Feng wrongly. I'm a person, I have loved ones, and I have people I want to protect. After I refused that Ning Qian and Feng Wei, they gave up persuading me and chose to be forceful. They said that if I don't do as they say, then they'll send people to the Darky dynasty and kill all the people related to me. When Qi Feng spoke up to hear, his tone was filled with rage and helplessness. He was enraged by Qi Feng and Feng Wei's overbearingness and his own uselessness. But when he thought about all this, loved ones and friends would very likely be killed because of a single choice of his, he could only helplessly compromise. So, do you understand now? Qi Feng spoke bitterly via voice transmission. Duan Lingtian's face was covered in a layer of ice since long ago. Never had he imagined that Ning Qian and Feng Wei had actually used such despicable methods for the sake of killing him. Using another's family to threaten the person to kill him was something that was simply beyond despicable. Originally, I thought that I can only go against my conscience and kill you, but since you've already guessed it, I'm not afraid to tell you that in this way, I can be considered to have given myself an explanation. Qi Feng spoke via voice transmission. Moreover, since you've actually guessed all this yet still dared come here, I presume you've thought of a method to deal with it, right? Or perhaps your spiritual force has increased once more, said Qi Feng once more. You're wrong. Duan Lingtian rejected Qi Feng's guess via voice transmission. I'm wrong. Qi Feng was stunned. Yes. Duan Lingtian replied, and then he said, I've indeed guessed your motivation, yet my spiritual force hasn't broken through. Besides that, I temporarily have no method to deal with it. What? Qi Feng was shocked greatly, and then he said via voice transmission, then aren't you coming to give your life away? Originally, when he was threatened by Ning Qian and Feng Wei, and was forced to agree to their request, Qi Feng had already decided to help the wicked carry out their mission and kill Duan Lingtian. The reason he made this decision was only for the sake of the survival of his friends and family, and it wasn't for the sake of the benefits promised by Ning Qian and Feng Wei. He was already prepared to shoulder the crime of going against his conscience for the rest of his life. But who knew that Duan Lingtian had actually pointed out what everything he wanted to do, and this caused the decision he made earlier to be shaken as he felt even more guilty in his heart. You can comprehend it like that. Duan Lingtian replied via voice transmission when he heard Qi Feng, and then said, all right, make a move for the sake of your friends and family. Qi Feng was dumbstruck. Has Duan Lingtian gone mad? He knows clearly that he's going to give his life away, yet he still dares ascend the arena. Moreover, he speaks frankly as if he really isn't afraid of death. Qi Feng gulped down a mouthful of saliva as strands of cold sweat flowed out from his forehead, and he asked via voice transmission. What exactly do you want to do? Didn't you say it already? I'm courting death. Duan Lingtian was slightly speechless. Didn't I answer that already? This Qi Feng is really forgetful. Stop joking. Qi Feng laughed bitterly as he replied. Do I look like I'm joking? Duan Lingtian frowned, and then urged. Quickly make a move. If you continue refusing to attack, then be careful or Ning Qian and Feng Wei might notice an inkling. At that time, not only you, but even your friends and family will be unable to bear the consequences. That won't do. Qi Feng refused and said via voice transmission, it was fine if you didn't know beforehand. But since you already know now, I'm unable to fight you no matter what, you should admit defeat. I'll think of another way for my own problem. Meanwhile, Qi Feng was unable to pass the barrier in his heart that was against this. You're a man, yet why are you so hesitant? How can you be sure that there isn't a way to deal with this that's beneficial to both of us? Quickly make a move. Duan Lingtian shouted out via voice transmission. It shocked Qi Feng to the point of returning to his senses, and it cleared the gloomy look on his face. You really want me to make a move? You really won't admit defeat? Qi Feng took a deep breath and asked with a low voice. Meanwhile, he noticed the fierce gaze that Ning Qian and Feng Wei shot over as well, and coupled with Duan Lingtian's urging, the origin energy on his body started to surge. Make a move. Duan Lingtian nodded, and it could be considered to be a reply to Qi Feng's questions. Even though I don't know what you want to do, but I still have to remind you that you must be careful. Once you feel that you aren't my match, you should quickly admit defeat. After Qi Feng finished speaking, his eyes abruptly became fierce and the gaze shot out from his eyes seemed to be able to penetrate everything. That's how it should be. Duan Lingtian revealed a smile when he saw Qi Feng recover his prime state of battle, yet the depths of Duan Lingtian's eyes started to flicker with a dim light. Thousand illusions. Instantly, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force pierced into the soul brand in the depths of his soul, and he directly executed his soul skill. An illusory space was constructed and enveloped Qifeng. Duan Lingtian has made a move. It's that unfathomable ability again, looks like Qifeng is going to lose. Qin Kong and Qifeng's strength are almost equal, yet Qin Kong was defeated under Duan Lingtian's unfathomable ability in a single move. Presumably, Qifeng would face a similar outcome. The surrounding crowd of spectators seemed to have already seen the scene of Qifeng being heavily injured and defeated by Duan Lingtian. As far as they were concerned, this battle was without the slightest bit of suspense. HMPH. Duan Lingtian, let me see how you use an illusory realm soul skill executed by a 4th level void interpretation stage spiritual force against a 4th level void interpretation stage inscription master. Zishang looked at Duan Lingtian from afar as a wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Even though you didn't die at my hands, but I'm still extremely happy as there'll be one less person that will go against me and is able to threaten me in this world. Your Devilseal tablet will very quickly become mine. The magnificent life of Zishang, has only just begun, whereas the life of you, Duan Lingtian, will end today. When he thought of this happy thing, Zishang's face was covered in joy, and he seemed to have already seen the scene of Duan Lingtian being killed by Qifeng. Duan Lingtian, you refused to become my disciple in front of everyone and caused me to lose face, and you have to pay the price for that. Ning Can's ghastly gaze stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian's figure as he muttered to himself. Bang! A light bang sounded out. Qifeng's spiritual force had swept out to shatter Duan Lingtian's illusory space, and it completely crippled Duan Lingtian's soul skill. If Qifeng's spiritual force was only at the 3rd level of the void interpretation stage, then it would be insufficient to shake the illusory space Duan Lingtian constructed with his 4th level void interpretation stage spiritual force. Yet it just happened that Qifeng's spiritual force was at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage, and it just happened to be able to counter Duan Lingtian's illusory space. At this instant, the stretched-out spiritual force of the representatives of the various dynasties who were inscription master noticed an inkling. Duan Lingtian's unfathomable ability has been overcome. I truly never imagined that Qifeng is actually an inscription master. Not only that, after his spiritual force stretched out, it actually easily destroyed Duan Lingtian's unfathomable ability. The scene before our eyes is truly unexpected. 827 Chapter 828, Duan Lingtian is injured. As inscription masters, the representatives of the various dynasties were in a complete uproar. Duan Lingtian's unfathomable ability had been overcome. Qifeng was an inscription master and his spiritual force that stretched out had easily overcome Duan Lingtian's ability. The words of these inscription master quickly entered into the ears of every single person present, and it caused everyone to look at Duan Lingtian and Qifeng skeptically. They quickly noticed that when facing Duan Lingtian's unfathomable ability, Qifeng seemed to have utterly not noticed it and stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian from the beginning until the end. Could it be that Qifeng is really capable of overcoming Duan Lingtian's ability? If it's really like this, then wouldn't Qifeng be able to easily obtain victory? Duan Lingtian is in danger. Instantly, the group of people that were originally filled with confidence towards Duan Lingtian couldn't help but break out in cold sweat for him when they saw Qifeng withdraw his grade 3 spirit bow. I was wondering why Ning can specially arrange this, so it turns out that Qifeng is an inscription master and is even capable of countering brother Lingtian. Zhang Shouyang's expression was unsightly as he looked at Duan Lingtian with a worried expression and muttered to himself. Duan Lingtian was able to arrive at this position by relying on his unfathomable ability. Now that his ability has been overcome, I'm afraid he's in danger. Su Li's face was suffused with worry. Big brother Duan. Feng Tianwu's beautiful eyes squinted slightly as her red-colored long robe fluttered without the presence of wind, and it seemed as if she was ready to make a move and assist Duan Lingtian at any moment. Lingtian, since he's an inscription master and is able to counter you, you should admit defeat quickly. Feng Wudao spoke to Duan Lingtian via voice transmission. You're still young and still have a long way ahead of you. It doesn't matter even if you don't get first place in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Even though there wasn't any progress between Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu, Feng Wudao had taken Duan Lingtian to be his son-in-law since long ago, and he naturally hoped that nothing happened to Duan Lingtian. Unfortunately, Duan Lingtian seemed as if he'd utterly not heard Feng Wudao's words, and not only did he not reply, he even didn't look over at Feng Wudao. This caused Feng Wudao to be unable to help but be slightly worried. What exactly does this kid want to do? Actually, it wasn't just Feng Wudao who'd sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian and asked him to admit defeat. Even Feng Tianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyang had persuaded Duan Lingtian more than once. However, when faced with their persuasion, Duan Lingtian acted as if he didn't hear them and persisted in his actions, and it was as if he utterly didn't hear them. Qi Feng, quickly kill him so as to avoid him speaking out with an admission of defeat. Ningkan looked at Qi Feng who'd taken out the grade 3 spirit bow and condensed his origin energy and 4th level intermediate wind concept into an arrow, and he shouted out via voice transmission. Qi Feng shuddered when receiving Ning Kan's shout via voice transmission, and his gaze became even more fierce and focused. His gaze locked onto Duan Lingtian at the first possible moment. At this moment, it seemed as if only Duan Lingtian remained in the world in his eyes. When Qi Feng destroyed his illusory space and withdrew the grade 3 spirit bow, Duan Lingtian's expression had already become completely serious. Without his soul skill, thousand illusions, to rely on, he was utterly unable to go against Qi Feng with his current strength, yet there was naturally a reason why he still hadn't admitted defeat now. Unknowingly, the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body started to boil, and the mental cultivation method of the 7th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique, the Sword Dragon form, started to circulate. Origin energy has just arisen on Duan Lingtian's body before it combined with his 2nd level intermediate wind concept to transform into real wind. The strong winds coiled around his body yet didn't give Duan Lingtian the slightest sense of safety. Under Qi Feng's gaze that seemed to be able to penetrate everything, Duan Lingtian felt he had no place to hide, and even if he flashed about with his movement technique, Whirlwind, his heart was still filled with uneasiness. He'd witnessed Qi Feng's ability earlier. Besides possessing a formidable strength, Qi Feng was a natural-born archer, and he possessed the qualities that any outstanding archer possessed: calmness, patience, and decisiveness. These 3 qualities weren't unfamiliar to Duan Lingtian. In the profession of a mercenary on the earth of his previous life, Duan Lingtian could be considered to be an all-rounder weapons specialist, and he similarly possessed these qualities. Moreover, these qualities were the qualities he possessed as a top sniper. A sniper and archer seemed to be extremely different, yet they achieved the same objective by different methods. It was precisely because of this that Duan Lingtian would arouse an uneasy feeling when facing Qi Feng. Because he knew how terrifying an archer that possessed these 3 qualities was. Practically every single arrow in the hands of an archer like this would hit its target every single time. Come at me. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian readjusted his state of mind, and a grade 3 spirit sword appeared in his hand. Along with it being coiled around by his material wind concept, it emitted strands of sharp aura. It was an aura that was almost like a blade of wind. At the same time, the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body moved according to the mental cultivation method of the Sword Dragon form and seemed to have transformed into roaring enraged dragons that ceaselessly charged through the various meridians in Duan Lingtian's body. Every single time they charged about, they carried the formidable medicinal strength of the rebirth pill and ceaselessly accumulated force as if they were making preparations for something. A light buzz resounded out, and it caused everyone present to hold their breaths. It was the arrow condensed completely from Qi Feng's materialized wind concept that had been placed on the grade 3 spirit bow in Qi Feng's hand before being placed on the bowstring and pulled back. The bowstring was pulled back until it became a full crescent shape. Qi Feng's gaze that seemed to be capable of penetrating everything locked onto Duan Lingtian at the first possible moment. The hair of Qi Feng who'd drawn his bow shook and in the end, the band that tied his hair broke apart. In the sky, the energy of the heavens and the earth roiled before finally condensing into the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth, and a total of 151 ancient horned dragon silhouettes accumulated force while waiting to be deployed. Presently, Qi Feng had drawn his bow while his hair fluttered without the presence of wind, and coupled with the ancient horned dragon silhouettes that covered the sky, it seemed to have transformed into a grand and magnificent scene that was flawless. Finally, at the instant that the hearts of the surrounding crowd of spectators moved up to their throats, Qi Feng released the arrow condensed from material wind concept. Swish! The arrow vanished instantly from the grade 3 spirit bow, and it tore through the sky. In the sky, the 151 ancient horned dragon silhouettes brandished their claws and bared their fangs as they flashed out along with it with a speed so swift that they seemed to be bolts of lightning that flashed past the horizon. How swift! At practically the instant Qi Feng released the arrow, Duan Lingtian's expression couldn't help but go grim. At almost the exact same instant, the arrows that shot out had instantly enlarged before Duan Lingtian's eyes, and it flew straight towards his forehead and was about to pierce him. Swish! At the same time that Qifeng released his arrow, the Grade 3 spirit sword in Duan Lingtian's hand had already swept out towards his forehead as if it could predict the arrow's trajectory. At practically the instant the Grade 3 spirit sword in Duan Lingtian's hand blocked before his forehead, the arrows completely condensed into form from material third-level intermediate wind concept had arrived as well, and it directly collided onto the blade of the Grade 3 spirit sword. Instantly, Duan Lingtian felt a terrifying strength gush into the Grade 3 spirit sword in his hand, causing his palm to split apart and fresh blood to drip down from it. It wasn't just that, the enormous force blasted onto his body as well, and it fiercely blasted him out. Swoosh! Duan Lingtian flew out like an arrow that left the bow as the hand that he held his sword with had completely lost all feeling in it, and he even didn't know when his Grade 3 spirit sword had left his hand. Presently, he was facing the energy from the arrow that entered into his body. This energy was extremely overbearing, and as soon as it entered Duan Lingtian's body, it shattered the meridians everywhere it passed, causing Duan Lingtian's internal organs to be injured. During the process after Duan Lingtian was blasted flying, he ceaselessly spat out blood violently, and all of it was the blood from the injuries to his meridians and internal organs. Feng Tianwu's beautiful eyes squinted and almost split apart as she exclaimed, "Big brother Duan." Her figure was like flames as it shook and wanted to go rescue Duan Lingtian, however, she was stopped by Feng Wudao. Feng Wudao knew that not only did his daughter not have the strength to save Duan Lingtian, even if she did, once she interfered in this battle, the Skywolf Fort would absolutely not let it go. Lingtian, quickly admit defeat. When he saw Qifeng condensed an arrow once more and place it on the Grade 3 spirit bow before drawing it into the shape of a full crescent moon, Feng Wudao couldn't help but continue making his voice transmission penetrate into Duan Lingtian's ear. Duan Lingtian, quickly admit defeat. Brother Lingtian. The bodies of Su Li and Zhang Shouyang trembled from agitation when they saw this scene, and they clenched their fists tightly as they ceaselessly shot their voice transmissions into Duan Lingtian's eardrums with the intention of making Duan Lingtian admit defeat. Big brother Duan, admit defeat, quickly admit defeat. Feng Tianwu's beautiful eyes were suffused with a crimson-red color as she ceaselessly cried out, and she completely disregarded her image. At this moment, in her heart, she only hoped that Duan Lingtian would be able to survive, and anything else wasn't important. This Duan Lingtian still hasn't admitted defeat even until now. Could it be that he really wants to die? Qifeng is about to shoot another arrow, and he's dead for sure once this arrow is shot. The surrounding crowd of spectators shook their heads successively as they felt that if Duan Lingtian still didn't admit defeat, then he would surely die here today. Buddha be praised, the Empyrean temples Wei Ming and Wei Jing pressed their palms together and chanted. Duan Lingtian, you said that you would fight me in the future, could it be that you want to break your promise? The young monk's gaze stared at Duan Lingtian's figure like a bolt of lightning as he muttered to himself. Zhang Yan, you have to properly learn from Duan Lingtian in the future, extraordinary. The emotion-severing sex master, Peiyan, seemed to have noticed something, and his eyes revealed a trace of sudden understanding before he spoke to Zhang Yan in a low voice. Learn from Duan Lingtian. Zhang Yan was puzzled. Isn't Duan Lingtian about to be killed? Whoosh. Finally, Duan Lingtian's figure that was blasted flying had stopped in midair, yet his body was trembling as if he was going through something within his body. In Duan Lingtian's body, the formidable strength that came from Qifeng's arrow was destroying Duan Lingtian's meridians and internal organs before fiercely piercing into his primary meridians. For a time, it clashed with the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body, and in the end, even a large portion of the dormant overbearing medicinal strength of the rebirth pill was drawn out by it. 828. Chapter 829, Pleasantly Surprising Breakthrough. As soon as the overbearing medicinal strength of the rebirth pill flowed out, it combined flawlessly with the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body and resisted the foreign formidable strength within his body. With the addition of the rebirth pill's medicinal strength, the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body seemed as if it was assisted by the gods and easily annihilated the foreign energy. Subsequently, the overbearing medicinal strength of the rebirth pill started to return to hiding in the depths of Duan Lingtian's dantian. Of course, a large portion of it had completely fused into the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body after fighting side by side earlier, causing Duan Lingtian's origin energy to expand, and it seemed as if it was injected with a stimulant as it fiercely charged forward. Bang! A light bang resounded out, and Duan Lingtian's bottleneck that led to the third level of the void interpretation stage and hadn't shown any movement for a long time broke with a crack. Instantly, Duan Lingtian's origin energy underwent a transformation. Third level of the void interpretation stage. I've broken through. When he noticed the changes in his body, Duan Lingtian's feelings surged because he knew that he'd succeeded in relying on the strength from before to break through to the third level of the void interpretation stage. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian was stunned once more because he noticed that the violent origin energy in his body continued charging forward without losing momentum in the slightest after charging through the bottleneck to advance to the third level of the void interpretation stage. After noticing this, Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted, and he didn't hesitate in the slightest to circulate the mental cultivation method of the sword dragon form. His origin energy flashed out fiercely while completely being moved forward by the overbearing medicinal strength left behind by the rebirth pill, and it seemed as if it had gone berserk and utterly didn't know how to stop. Instantly, Duan Lingtian noticed to his shock that after he broke through to the third level of the void interpretation stage, the bottleneck that led towards the fourth level of the void interpretation stage had formed. Bang! Duan Lingtian hadn't even had the time to think when the bottleneck that led to the fourth level of the void interpretation stage was blasted open, whereas, Duan Lingtian's origin energy underwent a transformation once more. Meanwhile, the speed of the origin energy moved by the overbearing medicinal strength of the rebirth pill had finally slowed down, yet it still showed no signs of stopping. Finally, after the bottleneck that led to the fifth level of the void interpretation stage appeared, his origin energy completely went quiet, whereas the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill in his origin energy was completely exhausted as well. 2 levels. Duan Lingtian was stunned, utterly stunned. He originally intended to use the strength of Qifeng's arrow to take a risk and arouse the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill in his body to charge through the bottleneck that led to the third level of the void interpretation stage. But unexpectedly, he'd still underestimated the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill. The medicinal strength of the rebirth pill directly mobilized his origin energy and allowed him to break through twice successively, and he broke through to the fourth level of the void interpretation stage in one go. Moreover, it was at the end of the fourth level of the void interpretation stage and had directly formed the bottleneck that led to the fifth level of the void interpretation stage. In other words, if he advanced a step further, he would be able to break through to the fifth level of the void interpretation stage. A pleasant surprise came so swiftly, and it caused Duan Lingtian to be slightly unable to recover from it. Only when a wave of ear-piercing sounds entered his ears and his throat felt as if it had been locked onto that Duan Lingtian didn't have the time to look yet could guess what had happened. Qifeng's second arrow had arrived. Without any hesitation, a sword appeared out of thin air with the raise of his hand, and it was a sword that emitted a terrifying aura. Sword drawing arts. At this moment, what Duan Lingtian had to do was to stop Qifeng's arrow and not launch an attack, so he didn't utilize the 9 Dragons' Radiant Flash but used the most straightforward sword drawing arts. As soon as his sword swept out, the vast origin energy from Duan Lingtian's breakthrough instantly gushed into the sword, and his second-level intermediate wind concept fused into his origin energy at the same time. Swish! The sword Duan Lingtian withdrew in a hurry was the quasi-royal grade spirit sword, and when combined with the fourth-level void interpretation stage origin energy he possessed now, it mobilized the strength of 120 ancient horned dragons. Half of them was the energy contained in his fourth-level void interpretation stage origin energy, and the other half was the amplification strength of the quasi-royal grade spirit sword. It wasn't just that, there was also the strength of 30 ancient horned dragons from Duan Lingtian's second-level intermediate wind concept. When both of them were added together, it was the strength of an entire 150 ancient horned dragons. It practically just happened to be equal to the strength contained on Qifeng's arrow, so the outcome was obvious. The arrow shattered on contact with the sword, and a terrifying strength swept out from the collision, causing terrifying waves of air to shoot out into the surroundings. Whoosh, 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 the terrifying violet wind swept out in all directions, causing some young geniuses with comparatively lower cultivations to be unable to help but narrow their eyes. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian, who was at the center of the storm, stood without moving. The sword in his hand had already been put away, and the sword light that shot out like a bolt of lightning earlier had been completely extinguished after shattering Qifeng's arrow. The energy of the heavens and earth that fluctuated mightily in the sky was unable to condense into the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth in the end. Duan Ling Tianum, who noticed that he didn't expose the quasi-royal grade spirit sword, couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Right when everyone including Qi Feng was dumbstruck, Duan Ling Tian moved. Whirlwind. The direction Duan Ling Tian flashed out towards was precisely the location of Qi Feng. Thousand illusions. This time, the spiritual force Duan Ling Tian mobilized was tremendously different from the spiritual force from before. After he broke through to the 4th level of the void interpretation stage, his spiritual force had broken through to the 6th level of the void interpretation stage along with this, so the illusory space constructed by his soul skill, Thousand Illusions, now was even more solid than before. In the next moment, the illusory space had already enveloped Qi Feng. Subsequently, under the dumbstruck gazes of the surrounding spectators, Duan Ling Tian, whose blood still flowed out from the corners of his mouth, had flashed to arrive by Qi Feng's side. Under the circumstances that Qi Feng didn't react in the slightest, he struck out with his palm and heavily injured Qi Feng. The illusory space shattered after this. Ah! Qi Feng's countenance was pale, and his body shook before spitting out a mouthful of blood. When he saw Duan Ling Tian, who stood nearby, a wisp of bitterness arose on his face. You've broken through. Yes. Duan Ling Tian nodded indifferently. It was because Qi Feng had clearly explained the sequence of events to him earlier, otherwise he would absolutely not have held back. As for the 2 arrows that Qi Feng shot out without holding back in the slightest, Duan Ling Tian didn't blame him. A person like Qi Feng would only attack with full strength once deciding to make a move. Perhaps in his mind, there was utterly no word called mercy. Moreover, Qi Feng had once persuaded him to admit defeat, and it was he who didn't admit defeat and asked Qi Feng to make a move against him. It could be said that even if he died this time, he would have died to his arrogance and conceit, and not at Qi Feng's hands. Because Qi Feng had already clearly said that he didn't want to kill him. It was he who forced Qi Feng to make a move. Fortunately, he made the right bet and didn't die. You had the intention of relying on my strength to break through since the beginning. Qi Feng took a deep breath and asked once more. You're very smart. Duan Ling Tian smiled lightly, and then he soared up into the sky to look at Ning Can, who had a livid expression before speaking with a clear voice. Vice Fort Master Ning, thank you. If it wasn't for you that asked Qi Feng to temper me, I wouldn't have successfully broken through so quickly. Duan Ling Tian especially placed emphasis on the word temper. HMPH. Ning Can grunted coldly as he was naturally able to discern the ridicule within Duan Ling Tian's words. Never had he imagined that he originally wanted to make Qi Feng kill Duan Ling Tian, yet who knew that it would help Duan Ling Tian in the end instead, allowing Duan Ling Tian to complete a breakthrough at the most critical moment. When he recalled the manner Duan Ling Tian shattered Qi Feng's arrow with the raise of his hand, Ning Can was slightly unable to wrap his head around it even until now. Even if Duan Ling Tian broke through, he seems to be only at the 3rd level of the void interpretation stage, right? How did he shatter Qi Feng's arrow with a 3rd level void interpretation stage cultivation? He didn't suspect that Qi Feng had held back because the arrow Qi Feng shot out had the silhouettes of 151 ancient horned dragons following behind it. That was Qi Feng's full strength. Looks like there are many secrets in this Duan Ling Tian's possession, Ning Can thought to himself. After ridiculing Ning Can, Duan Ling Tian glanced at Feng Wei, who had an unsightly expression, before looking at the nearby Zishang and saying via voice transmission. Zishang, you're surely extremely disappointed now, right? Zishang's face sank when he heard Duan Ling Tian, and he replied bluntly via voice transmission. Duan Ling Tian, don't be complacent. Even if you're able to survive at Qi Feng's hand, you're bound to be unable to live for long. Then we'll see who lives longer. Duan Ling Tian glanced deeply at Zishang before returning to the side of Feng Tianwu and the others. Tianwu, Uncle Feng, Su Li, Big Brother Zhang, sorry, I made all of you worry. Duan Ling Tian looked apologetically at the 4 people before him. Actually, he'd heard all the ceaseless voice transmissions from the 4 of them, but because his was in a state of extreme concentration, so he was utterly unable to reply. Duan Ling Tian, you really scared us. Su Li laughed bitterly and then said, next time, tell us beforehand if you want to take a risk, so that we're mentally prepared. You didn't see it earlier, young Miss Tianwu. HMPH. Feng Tianwu grunted coldly to interrupt Su Li, and then she looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked with concern. Big Brother Duan, are you all right? I'm fine, I've only suffered some light injuries. Duan Ling Tian shook his head. After he consumed a healing medicinal pill earlier, The injuries in his meridians and internal organs had already almost recovered. That sword strike of his from before was extremely extraordinary. In the distant sky, Wei Minghu stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian from afar, spoke with a serious expression. That strike was actually able to rival Qi Feng's arrow, and it indicated that it at least possesses the strength of 150 ancient horned dragons. The strength of 150 ancient horned dragons? Wei Jing said in surprise, is this possible? Even if Duan Lingtian broke through, he'd have only broken through to the third level of the void interpretation stage. How could he possibly possess such a formidable strength? Perhaps this is the strength of a variant. Wei Ming continued. It can only be explained in this way. Wei Jing nodded. Duan Lingtian, you really didn't disappoint me. I look forward extremely to the battle between us in the near future. The young monk muttered to himself, and then his voice transmission shot out to pierce into Duan Lingtian's ears. 829 Chapter 830, Distributing Rewards. Anytime. After Duan Lingtian received the voice transmission of the young monk, he replied unhurriedly. Earlier, Duan Lingtian wasn't the slightest bit afraid when facing the young monk's challenge. Presently, his cultivation had successively broken through by 2 levels, so Duan Lingtian, whose strength had increased greatly, was naturally even more unafraid. It was even to the extent that so long as this young monk wasn't an inscription master, the young monk would be utterly incapable of going against the illusory space constructed by his soul skill, 1000 illusions, with only a cultivation at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage. Unless the young monk had also consumed a special spirit fruit that strengthened the soul, or in other words, spiritual force. So long as the young monk's spiritual force was at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage and wasn't an inscription master, then once he fell into the illusory space constructed by Duan Lingtian's soul skill, he would be a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Duan Lingtian, congratulations. Sword 13 and Saber 5 nodded and smiled to Duan Lingtian before soaring into the sky to gather with the 2 vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort, the 2 middle-aged monks of Empyrean Temple, and the sect master of the emotion-severing sect, Payan. The higher-ups of the 4 great powers of the foreign lands had gathered together. I originally thought that Duan Lingtian was about to be defeated, yet who would have known that a turn in events occurred and he actually defeated Qi Feng to obtain the number 1 rank in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time. Someone couldn't help but exclaim with astonishment. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian had become the center of attention as well. The first place in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. How great an honor was this! Zhang Yan, I truly never imagined that I would be able to see you here, and what I didn't expect even more was that you actually joined a power of the foreign lands, the emotion-severing sect, that isn't inferior to the Skywolf Fort, and you've even become the personal disciple of the sect master. Duan Lingtian flew out to arrive by the side of Zhang Yan, who stood alone in the sky, and he took the initiative to greet Zhang Yan. All those years ago, even though there was slight conflict between him and Zhang Yan, yet it couldn't be considered to be any deep enmity. Since both of them who came from the same imperial kingdom were able to meet in the foreign lands, it was sufficient to show that there was fate between them. You're not bad as well, as you were able to successively break through 2 levels under a dangerous situation like that and break through to the 4th level of the void interpretation stage in one go. Moreover, that sword you used to shatter Qi Feng's arrow isn't simple, right? Zhang Yan glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian, yet his face still remained expressionless. The smile on Duan Lingtian's face had completely frozen long ago when Zhang Yan had only spoken halfway, and he only recovered from his shock after some time before taking a deep breath and asking. It's your master that discerned it? Zhang Yan nodded. Looks like that master of yours is only half a step away from the martial monarch stage. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly. Never had he expected that Zhang Yan's master was so formidable, to not only be able to discern he'd broken through to the 4th level of the void interpretation stage under the circumstances that the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth hadn't condensed into form. Zhang Yan's master was even able to discern that the sword he utilized at that time wasn't simple. The sword he used at that time was the quasi-royal grade spirit sword, so it naturally wasn't simple. You're even able to discern this? Zhang Yan's emotionless face revealed a rare expression of being moved. It isn't difficult to guess. Duan Lingtian shook his head. His mind had combined with the memories of the 2 lifetimes experienced by the rebirth martial emperor, so drawing inferences and guessing some things wasn't difficult. Even Sword 13, who was a 9th level void transformation stage martial artist, was unable to discern the cultivation he revealed under the condition that the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth hadn't condensed into form. Only an expert that had stepped halfway into the martial monarch stage or an expert at the martial monarch stage or above was capable of discerning it. It was obviously impossible that Zhang Yan's master was at the martial monarch stage. If Zhang Yan's master was at the martial monarch stage, then once he made an appearance, no matter if it was the two vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort, or Sword 13 and Saber 5 from the Blade sect, all of them would probably not dare talk loudly before him. Moreover, the Skywolf Fort and Blade sect were only third-rate powers in the foreign lands. Since that emotion-severing sect was coupled with these two sects, it would presumably not be strong to any extent and would surely be a third-rate power as well. A martial monarch stage expert didn't exist in a third-rate power of the foreign lands. Even if it was only a single martial monarch stage expert, a power that possessed a martial monarch stage expert could be considered to be a second-rate power in the foreign lands, and it was far from being something a third-rate power could compare to. It could be said that if a martial monarch stage expert moved out, he would be sufficient to sweep through an entire third-rate power. The strength of a martial monarch stage expert was obvious from this. Zhang Yan, how did you arrive at the emotion-severing sect? I heard from Senior Sword that your emotion-severing sect isn't an ordinary sect, and only people that have severed their emotions would be able to progress well in there. Duan Lingtian said curiously, you seem to be progressing well there and have even become the personal disciple of the emotion-severing sect's master. Could it be that you've severed your emotions as well? Didn't you like Ziyan? Even though many years had passed, Duan Lingtian still clearly remembered Zhang Yan's obsession towards Ziyan. I am I, and she is she. There's already no relationship between the two of us. Zhang Yan spoke indifferently, and his tone didn't contain the slightest feelings. What? Duan Lingtian was greatly surprised by Zhang Yan's reaction. Zhang Yan, could it be that something happened between the two of you? I still remember that when we fought the first time all those years ago, you were standing up for her. Later on, you went against me in every aspect because of her as well. If you came to look for me for the sake of discussing her, then you should go back. If you've come to catch up with me, then I welcome it with open arms. Zhang Yan continued. Looks like you've really changed. Duan Lingtian shook his head and sighed. He still remembered that the Zhang Yan from all those years ago looked at him with a hostile gaze, especially when before Ziyan, and he wished for nothing more than to slice him into 1,000 pieces. Yet now, even though Zhang Yan couldn't be considered to be friendly towards him, he seemed to not be averse towards him. No matter what, since you have a fortuitous encounter like this, I have to congratulate you. When two people from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom are able to meet in the foreign lands, then it can be considered to be fate. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly. Since Zhang Yan didn't hold any hostility towards him anymore, he naturally wouldn't hold a grudge from the little conflict they had in the past. He'd always followed the principle of not attacking unless attacked. In this world, having another friend was always better than having an extra enemy. Thank you. Even though his face was still expressionless, yet his eyes flashed with a trace of bright light. Obviously, he approved of Duan Lingtian's words. In the distance, the higher-ups of the Skywolf Fort, Blade Sect, Empyrean Temple, and Emotion-Severing Sect were gathered together. Sword 13, Wei Ming, Peiyan, I know the goal that all of you came here with, and it's none other than because all of you want to take a share from my Skywolf Fort. Since all of you've come, my Skywolf Fort will naturally not be selfish. Ningkan went straight to the point. But all of you must provide a portion of the rewards distributed to the 10 dynasties and the young geniuses in the top 10 of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time. Of course. Sword 13 nodded and agreed at the first possible moment. This monk has no objection. Wei Ming pressed his palms together as he spoke. All right, Peiyan spoke indifferently with an expressionless face. Not long after, the higher-ups of the 4 great powers of the foreign lands gathered the rewards for the martial competition this time, whereas, Ning Kan's expression eased up slightly. In this way, his Skywolf Fort wouldn't suffer a loss. Subsequently, it was the distribution of rewards. The Darken Dynasty possesses 5 young geniuses that are ranked in the top 10 of the martial competition this time, so it's able to obtain 10 concept fragments, 10 grade 3 spirit weapons, and 10 bottles of grade 3 life recovery pills. Ning Kan, who stood in the central area of the sky above the combat arena and had become the center of attention, spoke out slowly. Thank you, Vice Fort Master Ning. The Emperor of the Darken Dynasty hurriedly expressed his gratitude after obtaining the rewards, and a smile bloomed on his face. On the other hand, the representatives of the other 9 dynasties revealed envious expressions as they looked at the Darkin dynasty's emperor, and some of their eyes even revealed greed and killing intent. Obviously, they had malicious intent. Besides that, the Darki dynasty, Darkin dynasty, Daryuan dynasty, Darchu dynasty, and Darking dynasty will each obtain 2 concept fragments, 2 grade 3 spirit weapons, and 2 bottles of grade 3 life recovery pills. Ningkan continued announcing and sent out the rewards at the same time. Thank you, Vice Fort Master Ning. The representatives of the 5 great dynasties hurriedly expressed their gratitude. Finally, the representatives of the remaining 4 dynasties will each obtain a grade 3 spirit weapon and a bottle of grade 3 life recovery pills. Ningkan continued. Obviously, this was a consolation prize and didn't even carry a concept fragment. Even though the expressions of the representatives of the 4 dynasties was unsightly, yet they still accepted it gratefully. The dynasties behind them had been bustling about for so long and even sacrificed many young geniuses, yet they only obtained this little bit of rewards and didn't even obtain a concept fragment. How could they be happy? Even if it was only a single one, a concept fragment was sufficient to represent a future void transformation stage expert. So, the value of a concept fragment wasn't something a spirit weapon or medicinal pill could compare to. After distributing the rewards to the various dynasties, Ningkan's voice sounded out once more. Now, I call upon the young geniuses that are ranked in the top 10 to come forward. Whoosh, 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 instantly, the 10 people, including Duan Lingtian, soared into the sky and surrounded Ningkan. The first in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties will obtain 3 4th-level concept fragments, 10 grade 3 spirit weapons, and 10 bottles of grade 3 life recovery pills. Ningkan passed over the spatial ring that contained the prizes to Duan Lingtian. Thank you, Vice Fort Master Ning. Duan Lingtian grinned and completely disregarded the coldness in the depths of Ningkan's gaze when looking at him. For a time, Duan Lingtian had once again drawn the attention of everyone. 3 4th-level concept fragments. Even if it was the representatives of those dynasties that included the Darkin dynasty's emperor, their eyes went completely red with envy. After all, the concept fragments that the representatives of the various dynasties obtained as reward were only 1st-level concept fragments, and they were utterly unable to compare with 4th-level concept fragments. Duan Lingtian had obtained 3 of them in one go, so how could they not feel envy? If they knew that Duan Lingtian didn't have any interest towards this prize, then they would probably be angered to the point of spitting blood repeatedly. In reality, Duan Lingtian did indeed not care about the prize he'd just obtained and casually tossed the spatial ring that held the reward into his spatial ring, and he utterly didn't have the intention of opening it to take a look. Duan Lingtian's prize was the best. The second in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, Zishang, only obtained 2 4th-level concept fragments, 9 grade 3 spirit weapons, and 9 bottles of grade 3 life recovery pills. The third, Qifeng, obtained a single 4th-level concept fragment, 8 grade 3 spirit weapons, and 8 bottles of grade 3 life recovery pills. 830. Chapter 831. The 4 Great Powers Fighting for Geniuses. The prizes for the people ranked behind were even worse. According to their ranking, the grade 3 spirit weapons and grade 3 life recovery pills gradually reduced, and when it came to Zhang Shouyang at the 10th, he only obtained a single grade 3 spirit weapon and a single bottle of grade 3 life recovery pills. As for concept fragments, the 4th to the 6th respectively obtained 3, 2, and 1/3 level concept fragments. The 7th to the 9th respectively obtained 3, 2, and 1/2 level concept fragments. The 10th, Zhang Shouyang, obtained 3 1st-level concept fragments. Even then, Zhang Shouyang was bursting with joy, because there just happened to be an earth concept fragment amongst the 3 1st-level concept fragments. Duan Lingtian sighed when he saw the brilliant smile on Zhang Shouyang's face, and he casually withdrew the spatial ring he'd just obtained and took out the 3 4th-level concept fragments contained within. I wonder if there's an earth concept fragment amongst them. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. The facts proved that Duan Lingtian's luck wasn't bad, and there just happened to be an earth concept fragment amongst the 3 4th-level concept fragments. Big Brother Zhang. Duan Lingtian took out the 4th-level earth concept fragment and passed it to Zhang Shouyang. Brother Lingtian, you've comprehended earth concept as well, so keep it for yourself. Zhang Shouyang's eyes revealed a trace of gratitude as he shook his head and refused Duan Lingtian's good intentions. Big Brother Zhang, I possess an Earth concept fragment with an even higher level, said Duan Lingtian via voice transmission. He's obtained a 7th level Earth concept fragment in the Sword Monarch's treasure all those years ago, so unless it was an 8th level Earth concept fragment or above, otherwise, he wouldn't be interested. After some tactful persuasion, Zhang Shouyang took the 4th level Earth concept fragment. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian gave Feng Tianwu the 4th level Fire concept fragment amongst the 2 remaining concept fragments. The final concept fragment was a Water concept fragment, and Su Li had no use of it, so he casually tossed it back into his spatial ring. After the rewards were completely distributed, most of the people were immersed in joy, and only when Ningkan spoke out once more did the scene quiet down. Representatives and young geniuses from the 10 dynasties, the rewards distributed earlier are only the rewards for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Ning Kan's voice entered clearly into the ears of every single person present. It's only the rewards for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Ning Kan's words caused many of the representatives and young geniuses to have puzzled expressions as they didn't know what Ning Kan's words meant, yet all of them still looked at Ning Kan with anticipation. They were able to discern that there was a continuation to Ning Kan's words. Today, our Skywolf Fort will be recruiting disciples. Any young genius of the 10 dynasties that's at the void interpretation stage or above may join our Skywolf Fort. Ning Kan said with a sonorous voice, once all of you join our Skywolf Fort, our Skywolf Fort will bestow more concept fragments, spirit weapons, and medicinal pills to all of you. Even the dynasties all of you are from will obtain generous rewards. As soon as Ning Kan finished speaking, many young geniuses present were moved by this. After the numerous rounds of selections in the martial competition, almost every single one of the young geniuses from the 10 dynasties that were able to be standing here were existences at the void interpretation stage or above. In other words, every single one of them were able to join the Skywolf Fort and become a disciple of the Skywolf Fort. Our Blade sect similarly welcomes every one of you to join us. Meanwhile, Sword 13 spoke out as well, and then he added. What we give won't be less than the Skywolf Fort. Instantly, even more people were moved. The Blade sect was a formidable power of the foreign lands that wasn't inferior to the Skywolf Fort, and the might Sword 13 had revealed earlier caused them to rather admire and be attracted to the Blade sect. Buddha be praised, the middle-aged monk, Wei Ming, stood out as well, and then he said with a sonorous voice. The Empyrean Temple opens its doors and invites the entrance of all male young geniuses, and we'll surely not treat all of you shabbily. The group of young geniuses went silent when they heard the monk. After a short while, a young genius couldn't help but asked. Monk, I heard that not only must we bald ourselves, we must practice abstinence from meat and lust, and chant prayers in your Empyrean Temple. Is it really like this? Instantly, the group of young geniuses looked over. If it was really like this, then was there any meaning in living? No matter how great a benefit they obtained, they would surely be unwilling to join the Empyrean Temple. Buddha be praised, everyone, you've misunderstood. Wei Ming laughed bitterly. Our Empyrean Temple is divided into those that have become monks and those that haven't. Disciples that haven't become monks aren't governed by these rules. That's still all right. Wei Ming's answer caused many young men to heave a sigh of relief. The Emotion-Severing Sect welcomes all of you to join us. Payan, the sect master of the Emotion-Severing Sect spoke out, and his expression was emotionless as he spoke coldly. The 4 great powers of the foreign lands recruiting disciples at the same time caused many young geniuses to find it slightly difficult to choose. Of course, some people already had their choices. For example, Duan Lingtian, Feng Tianwu, and Zhang Shouyang stood by Sword 13's side, and they were obviously intending to head to the Blade sect with Sword 13. On the other hand, Zisheng followed by Ning Kan's side instead. As the personal disciple of Ning Kan, he naturally joined the Skywolf Fort. Duan Lingtian and Zisheng were the first and second in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time, and both of them already had a home. For a time, the third, Qi Feng, had become the target the 4 great powers competed for. Qi Feng, the Emotion-Severing Sect welcomes you. The sect master of the Emotion-Severing Sect, Payan, was the first to speak with an invitation. Qi Feng, our Blade sect welcomes you to join us. Sword 13 invited as well. He'd clearly seen Qi Feng's ability earlier, and his archery skills were really extraordinary. Most importantly, Qi Feng was calm, patient, and decisive, and this displayed his value even more. Buddha be praised, the Empyrean Temple invites benefactor Qi Feng to join us. Wei Ming was unwilling to lag behind. Qi Feng, if you don't join my Skywolf Fort, then I'll send people to annihilate your family. Feng Wei, who'd once threatened Qi Feng earlier, sent a voice transmission to threaten Qi Feng once more. As far as he was concerned, since Qi Feng had yielded once, Qi Feng would yield again. If I don't join your Skywolf Fort, you'll annihilate my family. Vice Fort Master Feng, are you inviting me? Or are you threatening me? Unfortunately, Qi Feng didn't choose to endure any longer, and he instead looked at Feng Wei and asked with a low voice. Whoosh! As soon as Qi Feng said this, the entire scene was in an uproar. For the sake of making Qi Feng join the Skywolf Fort, the Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort, Feng Wei, had actually threatened Qi Feng like this. For a time, the representatives and young geniuses of the 10 dynasties frowned in unison. Since Feng Wei could threaten Qi Feng, wouldn't it represent that he was able to threaten them as well? Qi Feng, don't you dare make slanderous accusations of me. Feng Wei's face went ominous. Never had he imagined that Qi Feng would actually dare shed all pretenses and repeat his threats. Moreover, Qi Feng had spoken it out loud. Making slanderous accusations. HMPH. Qi Feng glanced indifferently at Feng Wei before grunting coldly, then he looked at the sect master of the emotion-severing sect, Peiyan, and his expression eased up as he asked respectfully. Sect Master Pei, will the emotion-severing sect be able to protect my family and friends' safety if I join the emotion-severing sect? As soon as Qi Feng said this, Ning Qian and Feng Wei's faces went grim. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly as he never imagined that Qi Feng would be so brave to actually dare trap the Skywolf Fort like this. As soon as Qi Feng said this, it practically affirmed the fact that the Skywolf Fort had threatened him, and this time, the Skywolf Fort would be unable to wash it away no matter what they did. Just like Duan Lingtian thought, when the representatives and young geniuses of the 10 dynasties looked at Ning Qian and Feng Wei, their eyes contained slight rejection. Feng Wei, what a great thing you've done. Ning Qian's voice transmission pierced into Feng Wei's ears as he cursed. Just because of your threats to Qi Feng, our Skywolf Fort might have completely done everything to only benefit the other 3 powers in the end. Feng Wei's expression went even more gloomy when he heard Ning Qian's curses. Of course, he didn't dare vent his feelings on Ning Qian. His eyes were filled with coldness, and his gaze locked on tightly onto Qi Feng. Of course, when facing Qi Feng's question, Peiyan nodded lightly without the slightest hesitation, and then he said with an expressionless face, if you're willing to join my emotion-severing sect, then I can speak now. One who lays a hand on the loved ones of you, Qi Feng, is one who'd going against I, Peiyan. When Peiyan made such a promise, it caused Sword 13 and Wei Ming to be unable to help but shake their heads and sigh. They knew they had no chance to obtain Qi Feng. Instantly, their gazes moved to the person that was ranked at the 4th, Qin Kong, but unfortunately, they hadn't even had the chance to speak when Qin Kong had already said, I'll go wherever Qi Feng goes. Sword 13 and Wei Ming instantly started laughing bitterly. Sect Master Pei, I'm willing to join your emotion-severing sect. After Qi Feng heard Peiyan's agreement, he agreed right away and joined the emotion-severing sect. All right, Peiyan nodded, and a rare wisp of a slight smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. I welcome the both of you. Obviously, he'd heard Qin Kong's words as well. For a time, the 3rd and 4th of the martial competition had both joined the emotion-severing sect. Tom Yu, our Skywolf Fort welcomes you to join us. Ning Qian looked at Tom Yu, who was ranked at the 5th and invited. HMPH. Tom Yu grunted coldly, and then grinned. If I refuse, will the 2 of you go to the Daryuan dynasty to kill my family? If it's so, then I'm truly sorry, but I'm an orphan. Ning Yan was slightly embarrassed when he heard this, and he hurriedly said, of course not. You surely said no because you heard I'm an orphan. Tom Yu had an expression that said, don't try to cheat me. Ning Qian's face sank, and then he glared fiercely at Feng Wei, who stood by his side. If it wasn't for Feng Wei threatening Qi Feng and ruining the Skywolf Fort's reputation, how would they possibly be in such a bad situation? Moreover, I'll go wherever my master goes. As Tom Yu spoke, his eyes lit up as he looked at Duan Lingtian. I'll join the Blade Sect. The Blade Sect welcomes you. Sword 13 started laughing, and he never imagined that Duan Lingtian's existence would help him pull Tom Yu over. Perhaps Tom Yu was inferior to Qi Feng and Qin Kong, but he was also a rare young expert, and he was the #1 expert in the younger generation of the Daryuan dynasty. 831. Chapter 832, Leaving. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but frown when he heard Tom Yu. but for the sake of not making it difficult for Sword 13, he didn't say anything in the end. I'll join the Skywolf Fort. A chilly voice sounded out, and it was the Darking Dynasty's Yi Ling that spoke out and seemed to entirely not care that Feng Wei had threatened Qi Feng earlier, or perhaps she didn't believe Qi Feng's words from before. Yi Ling's thoughts were extremely simple. Besides the Skywolf Fort that only had Zishang, the Blade Sect and Emotion Severing Sect both possessed a few young geniuses that were even more outstanding than her, so she wouldn't obtain an important position in the sect even if she joined them. So, she chose the Skywolf Fort. The Skywolf Fort welcomes you. Ningkan laughed joyfully, as he never imagined that there would still be someone that requested to join the Skywolf Fort under these circumstances. After all, the reputation of the Skywolf Fort had already been utterly discredited by Feng Wei. I'll join the Empyrean Temple. The injuries of O Chen, who was ranked number 9, had already more or less recovered, and he spoke out. His thoughts were more or less similar to Yi Ling. Up until now, the Empyrean Temple hadn't obtained single person in the top 10, so if he went there, he would surely be valued. Meanwhile, the top 10 of the martial competition had been completely shared up. The Blade Sect was undoubtedly the biggest winner, as it had obtained 5 of the top 10, namely Duan Ling Tian, Tom Yu, Su Li, Feng Tian Wu, and Zhang Shouyang. Even though the Emotion Severing Sect only obtained 2 people like the Skywolf Fort, yet the young geniuses it obtained were the existences at the 3rd and 4th, and they possessed extraordinary strength. Qi Feng and Qin Kong. The Skywolf Fort obtained 2, Zishang and Yi Ling. The Empyrean Temple only obtained 1, O Chen. In next to no time, the remaining young geniuses successively chose their homes. Perhaps they were reminded by the choices of Yi Ling and O Chen, causing even more of them to choose to join the Empyrean Temple and Skywolf Fort. This caused smiles to bloom on the face of the 2 vice-fort masters of Skywolf Fort. Buddha be praised, Buddha be praised, Wei Ming's face was covered in a smile. But the 2 vice-sect masters of the Blade Sect, Sword 13 and Saber 5, and the sect master of the Emotion Severing Sect, Payan, weren't unhappy because of this. As far as they were concerned, was there any point in obtaining a large amount? Quality was the way of kings. In next to no time, brilliant smiles suffused the faces of the representative of the 10 dynasties because they more or less obtained the great gifts given by the 4 powers. They were given great gifts mainly as a form of thanks to the dynasties they were from for fostering this group of young geniuses. Everyone, the matter here has ended. My Emotion Severing Sect will leave first. Pay and bid his farewells indifferently before leaving with Zhang Yan and a few more young geniuses. Buddha be praised, this monk should leave as well. Wei Ming, Wei Jing, and the young monk came in a group of 3 but left in a group of over 10 people. Our Blade Sect ought to leave as well. Sword 13 glanced at Ning Ken and Feng Wei before indifferently bidding farewell to the 2, and then he soared into the sky with Duan Ling Tian and the others and headed out of the Skywolf Fort. Before he left, Duan Ling Tian noticed a gloomy gaze sweeping towards him, and he couldn't help but turn around. Zishang. A wisp of a cold smile suffused the corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth when he saw the owner of the gaze. Duan Ling Tian, I've said it before, you won't be able to live for long. Zishang's voice transmission clearly entered into Duan Ling Tian's ears, and it was filled with ruthlessness. Idiot, Duan Ling Tian replied calmly via voice transmission before following up to Sword 13 and the others to leave Skywolf Fort together. Idiot, Zishang's face was livid, and in the end, he fiercely gritted his teeth and looked at Ningkan who was talking with the other young geniuses. Master, there's something I want to tell you, there's a treasure in Duan Ling Tian's possession. That possession is a saint weapon that surpasses spirit weapons, and it's capable of providing an amplification of 100%. Zishang was ready to risk everything now, and he was only thinking about how to kill Duan Ling Tian in his heart. As for anything else, he temporarily didn't think of it. What? Ning Kan's pupils constricted when he heard Zishang's voice transmission, and then he looked at Zishang and said with a low voice, "Follow me." After a short moment, both of them arrived at an empty area. Is what you said true? Ning Kan asked with a low voice. Yes, Zishang nodded. Why didn't you say so earlier? Ning Kan asked again, and his tone contained slight blame. I originally thought that Qi Feng would be able to kill him, and after Qi Feng killed him, I'd think of a way to obtain his spatial ring. Zishang took a deep breath before speaking. You wanted to keep the saint weapon for yourself. Ning Kan's eyes flickered with bright lights as his fierce gaze descended onto Zishang as if it was capable of seeing through him. Yes, Zishang gritted his teeth and nodded in admission. HMPH. I'll deal with you later. Ning grunted coldly and left directly, but his tone didn't reveal any intention of blaming Zishang. If he compared himself to Zishang, then he wouldn't easily tell anyone about the Saint weapon as well. A Saint weapon that provides an amplification of 100%, if the Fort Master is able to obtain it, then he'll be able to easily defeat the two old fellows of the Blade Sect, the old Baldi of the Empyrean Temple and the old Sect Master and current Sect Master Payan of the Emotion-Severing Sect. After Ning Clan parted with Zishang, he directly headed to the inner fort. This was a great event that had a deep and far effects to their Skywolf fort, so he couldn't afford to dally. Duan Lingtian, let's see how you survive this time. The corners of Zishang's mouth was suffused with an evil cold smile when he saw Ning Can leave, and he seemed to have already seen the scene of Duan Lingtian being killed by the experts of the Skywolf fort. On the other side, Duan Lingtian's group headed all the way towards the north after leaving the ancient desert city as the Blade Sect was in that direction. Our Blade Sect is divided into the House of Sabers and House of Swords. The House of Sabers master is the master of my senior brother Saber, and the master of the House of Swords is my master. Sword 13 introduced the Blade Sect to Duan Lingtian and the others. The gains he obtained this time were extremely plentiful, causing him to be in a great mood. Tom Yu, how about following me to the House of Sabers? Suddenly, Saber 5 arrived at Ta Mu's side and spoke to Tom Yu. I'll go where master goes. Tom Yu didn't even think before speaking directly. I'll give you the best cultivation environment, how about it? I'll go where master goes. I'll satisfy any request you have, how about it? I'll go where master goes. Can you say something else? I'll go where master goes. In the end, Saber 5 was completely speechless, and he could only shoot his gaze at Duan Lingtian. Lingtian, ask this disciple of yours to join our House of Sabers, how about it? As far as he was concerned, Duan Lingtian was adept in the sword and coupled with his junior brother's sword would surely not allow Duan Lingtian to leave, so he'd never thought about pulling Duan Lingtian into the House of Sabers. He only hoped to be able to convince Duan Lingtian to order Tom Yu to enter the House of Sabers. As far as he was concerned, once Duan Lingtian issued the order, Tom Yu would absolutely not refuse. He isn't my disciple. Duan Lingtian frowned and spoke decisively. Lingtian, just speak frankly about any benefit you want. In any case, my House of Sabers wants this Tom Yu for sure. He isn't my disciple. Lingtian, how about this? He isn't my disciple. Can you not interrupt me? Wait for me too. He isn't my disciple, Saber 5 yielded completely after a round of this, and he couldn't help but laugh bitterly. It's truly a great waste if the two of you aren't master and disciple. You think so as well? The eyes of Tom Yu, who'd always been following quietly behind Duan Lingtian, lit up when he heard Saber 5, and he seemed to have found a common topic with Saber 5. Yes, indeed, Saber 5's eyes lit up, there seems to be a chance. Not bad, your judgment isn't bad. Tom Yu praised. Since you said my judgment isn't bad, then since I asked you to join my House of Sabers, Saber 5 followed along, but he hadn't finished speaking when he was interrupted by Tom Yu. I'll go where master goes. For a time, Saber 5 yielded completely, and he was utterly helpless. Feng Tianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyang, who stood on the other side of Duan Lingtian, couldn't help but laugh when they saw this scene. As far as they were concerned, Tom Yu was simply a clown. Tom Yu. Duan Lingtian, who'd never paid any attention to Tom Yu since the beginning, looked at Tom Yu seriously for the first time. Master, is there anything you need? Tom Yu looked respectfully and reverently at Duan Lingtian. I've already said it before, I'm not your master. Besides that, I want to tell you that I'm unable to teach you the things you want to learn from me because it's an ability that can't be replicated. Duan Lingtian spoke with a serious expression, and his words came from the heart. Don't worry, master, I'll absolutely not teach it to a third person once I learn it. Tom Yu vowed sincerely, and his words obviously showed he didn't take Duan Lingtian's words seriously, causing Duan Lingtian to feel a wave of speechlessness. Did you not hear me clearly? Duan Lingtian frowned and spoke with slight impatience. Master, I know you feel aversion towards me now, and don't want to pass that ability down to me, but I believe that I'll surely be able to move you with my sincerity one day. Tom Yu spoke in all seriousness. You think I'm deceiving you? Duan Lingtian could be considered to have understood now. It turned out that this Tom Yu didn't believe him since the beginning. Tom Yu doesn't dare. Tom Yu hurriedly lowered his head like an old child that was wronged when he heard Duan Lingtian's tone was off. Never mind, I can't be bothered to pay attention to you. Duan Lingtian was completely helpless. Tom Yu was simply a hopeless case, and he was a peculiar hopeless case that couldn't be polished. Master, I'll surely do my duty as a disciple, said Tom Yu seriously. Duan Lingtian didn't pay any more attention to him instead, and he looked at Su Li and laughed. Su Li, when did you comprehend intermediate water concept? You really concealed it too deeply, huh? In the past, I thought you only comprehended sword concept. It's a matter from a long time ago. After not utilizing it for a long time, I almost forgot about it. It just happened that I encountered layer upon layer of pressure in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time, so I recalled it once more and utilized it. Su Li smiled. Do you think I would believe that? Duan Lingtian rolled his eyes angrily at Su Li. Who was he deceiving? How could a martial artist at the void interpretation stage just forget about something? 832. Chapter 833, Coming with Malicious Intentions. Tom Yu, do you believe me? Su Li smiled lightly as he looked at Tom Yu and asked. I'll believe you if Master does. Tom Yu didn't hesitate in the slightest to reply decisively. He's really obedient. Duan Lingtian, why don't you take this disciple? I think he's rather not bad. Su Li looked at Duan Lingtian and smiled. Thank you, martial uncle, for speaking for Tom Yu. Tom Yu hurriedly bowed and thanked Su Li, and his words came from the heart and were exceedingly sincere. If you want to take him as a disciple, then go ahead. In any case, I have nothing to teach him, and I'm not interested in taking a disciple like this. Duan Lingtian spoke angrily after glaring at Su Li. Su Li laughed bitterly and didn't say anything further. Big brother Zhang, sister-in-law is still in the Darken Dynasty now, what are you planning to do in the future? Will you bring her over or will you return yourself? Duan Lingtian asked Zhang Shouyang, as Zhang Shouyang wasn't alone and still had a wife, Wang Chong, who was in the Darken Dynasty's Zhang clan. When he was in the Darken Dynasty, Zhang Shouyang and Wang Chong had never left each other's side. This time, when Zhang Shouyang left the Darken Dynasty to come to the foreign lands to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, he didn't bring her over. After some time, make a trip with me to bring her over. Zhang Shouyang's face was covered in warmth when Duan Lingtian mentioned Wang Chong, and he smiled lightly. All right, Duan Lingtian smiled as he nodded. In his heart, his big brother Zhang had always been the same big brother Zhang from before, the big brother Zhang that had once saved his life and helped him on many occasions. Perhaps his current strength had surpassed Zhang Shouyang, yet so long as Zhang Shouyang had any problems or needs, then he would absolutely not shirk away. Even if he had to lay down his life. At that time, I'll follow the both of you back as well, said Feng Tianwu. Haha, we of course have to bring you along. Zhang Shouyang laughed. If all of you want to return to the Darken Dynasty, I'll send a few elders to go along with you. The foreign lands isn't like your Darken Dynasty, and it's filled with danger in every corner. Sword 13 spoke with a light smile when he heard the conversation between Duan Lingtian's group of 3. Thank you, senior. Duan Lingtian hurriedly expressed his gratitude. He knew that this was a special preferential treatment Sword 13 gave to them, and it was a treatment that ordinary Blade Sect disciples were unable to enjoy. But if all of you really want to return, it will probably have to wait until a year from now. Sword 13 added. Understood. Duan Lingtian nodded. He was mentally prepared for this since long ago, so he wasn't surprised. When they were still at the Skywolf Fort earlier, he'd vaguely guessed some things from Sword 13's words, and it was related to the treasures left behind by a martial emperor stage expert. Moreover, that treasure vault had a special inscription formation established on it, causing it to only allow geniuses under the age of 40 to enter. Besides that, there were numerous precious treasures within the treasure vault. Obviously, if there were no precious treasures within it, then would it be able to make the Skywolf Fort, Blade Sect, Empyrean Temple, and Emotion Severing Sect exhaust all efforts for it? Not to mention anything else, just the concept fragments the 4 powers had expended on the representatives and young geniuses of the 10 dynasties was already of great value. As far as Duan Lingtian was concerned, the 4 powers would absolutely not make a losing exchange. They'd surely obtained specific information about the treasure vault left behind by the martial emperor stage expert beforehand, and they knew that there was something they wanted within it. Even though Duan Lingtian wasn't surprised, it didn't represent that Feng Tianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyang weren't surprised. After they perceived that Duan Lingtian seemed to know some things, the three of them couldn't help but ask curiously via voice transmission. Big brother Duan, why do we have to wait a year before we can return? Duan Lingtian, when you said you understood earlier, you seem to know why we can only return after a year. Brother Lingtian, what exactly is going on? Duan Lingtian didn't conceal anything intentionally when facing their questions, and he spoke of his guesses to them. All of this was his own guess. From the beginning until the end, Sword 13 had never directly mentioned it to him. A treasure vault left behind by a martial emperor stage expert. Only a genius below the age of 40 was able to enter. There are precious treasures that the four great powers want within it. The Skywolf Fort held the martial competition of the 10 dynasties for the sake of obtaining the treasures left behind by that martial emperor stage expert. Feng Tianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyang were shocked. Never had they imagined that there were so many things concealed behind a mere martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Earlier, when the four powers paid such great prices for the sake of competing for the group of young geniuses, they felt rather puzzled. Now they came to a sudden understanding. It turned out that the four powers wanted to use the group of young geniuses to help them go to the treasure vault left behind by the martial emperor stage expert and search for the treasures they wanted to obtain. Looks like there'll be another round of open and covert competition once we enter the treasure vault left behind by the martial emperor stage expert. Su Li sighed via voice transmission. Duan Lingtian deeply agreed with this. After all, there were four great powers that knew of the treasure vault left behind by the martial emperor stage expert. At that time, they would surely send people in, so the people sent in would be unable to avoid competing for various treasures. Moreover, it might not be only the four great powers that knew of the existence of the treasure vault left behind by the martial emperor stage expert. Perhaps there were 5 powers, 10 powers, or even more powers. For a time, Duan Lingtian felt strands of heavy pressure. The enormousness of the foreign lands was far from something the Darkin dynasty could compare to. Not to mention those formidable second-rate powers, just in these third-rate sects like the Empyrean Temple and Emotion-Severing sect, Duan Lingtian had seen 2 6th-level void interpretation stage experts that were below the age of 40 today. The Empyrean Temple's young monk and the Emotion-Severing sect's Zhang Yan. Duan Lingtian believed that there were surely other outstanding young experts like this in the Skywolf Fort and Blade sect. Feng Tianwu and Zhang Shouyang were slightly dazed and hadn't recovered from their shock yet. A martial emperor stage expert was an existence that stood at the peak of the Cloud Continent, and to them, it only existed in legends. Exactly how precious would the treasures within a treasure vault left behind by a martial emperor stage expert be? It was difficult for them to imagine it. Sword 13 who led the way ahead and Saber 5 who followed in the rear seemed to have nothing something, and their brows suddenly knit together. Subsequently, they seemed as if they'd discussed it earlier as they squinted their eyes and looked back in unison. *T. Sword 13's face went grim. Saber 5's expression was extremely unsightly as well. There were 3 figures flashing over swiftly from the distance, and they were like 3 bolts of black lightning that appeared in their field of vision in a short moment. The speed of these 3 people was so swift that it caused Sword 13 and Saber 5 to be unable to arouse the thought of fleeing. If it was only the 2 of them, then perhaps they would be able to flee easily. But the problem was that they weren't alone, and they still had to take care of Duan Lingtian and the group of young geniuses. "It's Ning Can." In next to no time, Saber 5 shouted out coldly, and his expression was exceedingly gloomy. "Ning Can, what has he come for?" Saber 5's cold shout caused Duan Lingtian, the group of young geniuses and Feng Wudao to return to their sense, and they stopped moving in unison before looking at the 3 approaching figures. One of them was Ning Can, who they were familiar with, the Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort. Besides Ning Can, there were another 2 old men. One of the old men was actually slightly swifter than Ning Can, whereas, the other old man had a speed equal to Ning Can. Ning Can, Meng Li, Yukong. Sword 13 flew out to greet the 3 people that were flashing over, and then he looked at them and said with a low voice, "All of you probably caught up not simply for the sake of sending us off, right? Sword 13, so long as you hand over Duan Lingtian, all of you can leave safely." Ning Can went straight to the point and spoke of the reason for their arrival. They'd come for a single reason, to make Duan Lingtian stay behind. Duan Lingtian's expression went slightly grim as he never imagined that Ning Can's group of 3 had pursued them for him. Even though he'd never seen those 2 old men before, Since they were able to come over with Ning Can, and based on the speed they revealed earlier, he was able to discern their strengths. One of them was stronger than Ning Can, whereas, the other was on par with Ning Can. Because of this, Duan Lingtian was extremely easily able to guess the identities of the other two people. They ought to be Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort. The Skywolf Fort had a total of 5 Vice Fort Masters. Ning Can and Feng Wei, who he'd seen presiding over the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, were only 2 of them. Ning Can, are you kidding? Sword 13 hadn't spoken when Saber 5 had already laughed coldly. Duan Lingtian is currently a member of our Blade sect, and if you want to lay a hand on him, then you have the Ask the Saber in my hand first. As Saber 5 spoke, a heavy and broad saber had appeared in his hand, and it emitted a peerlessly fierce aura that contained strands of a sanguinary smell. Obviously, many souls had perished under this saber, causing the saber to be tainted with a dense sanguinary aura. Sword 13, do you think the same as well? The old man that obviously possessed a strength stronger than Ning Can took a step forward and stared at Sword 13 with a burning gaze as he asked with a low voice. Meng Li, what is the meaning of this? Do you think there's no one capable in my Blade sect? Sword 13's eyes flickered with cold lights as he emitted a piercingly cold sword intent from his body, and surging out along with this was an icy cold and bone-piercing killing intent that shot into the sky. Meng Li was a Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort that had stepped into the 9th level of the Void Transformation stage many years ago, and he was one of the strongest 2 beneath the Fort Master of Skywolf Fort. The other person was a Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort as well, and he possessed a cultivation on par with Meng Li. That person, Feng Wei, and the 3 people before him were the 5 great Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort. The last person that came with Meng Li and Ning Can was called Yu Tang, and he was also in existence at the 8th level of the Void Transformation stage like Ning Can. 1 9th level Void Transformation stage martial artist and 2 8th level Void Transformation stage martial artists. The 3 of them had pursued them from the Skywolf Fort with malicious intent, and they'd come for the sake of Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, these 3 old fellows have actually chased after us like flies for the sake of you. Could it be that you dug out the graves of their ancestors? Su Li asked with slight shock as he looked at Ning Can's group of 3. It would be fine if I did dig out their ancestors' graves. At least I would know why they're looking for me, but the problem is I utterly don't know why they have set their sights on me now. Duan Lingtian frowned. 833 Chapter 834, Sword 13's Strength. It wasn't that Duan Lingtian had never thought the 3 old men had come for the sake of Zishang, yet he felt it wasn't realistic. Even if Ning Can was Zishang's master, he couldn't openly stand out for Zishang and make a move against him because of the private enmity between him and Zishang. Otherwise, Ning Can would become a humongous joke. Not to mention he'd called over another 2 Vice Fort Masters of the Skywolf Fort, and one of them was even a 9th level Void Transformation stage expert just like Sword 13. Sword 13, our Skywolf Fort had always been on good terms and lived together peacefully with your Blade sect. Today, so long as you hand over this young man, then we'll leave right away. In the future, we'll even send over a gift of thanks to the Blade sect. Meng Li spoke with a tone that contained the intent to threaten Sword 13. What if I don't hand him over? Sword 13's face sank. Then I can only be rude. Meng Li's eyes flashed with a cold light as he suddenly soared into the sky towards Sword 13. I heard Ning Can say that you've already broken through to the 9th level of the Void Transformation stage. Let me witness the strength of the number 2 expert of the House of Swords today. You will. Sword 13 moved over to intercept him without the slightest fear as his body emitted fierce sword chi. At this instant, his entire body seemed to have transformed into a sword. Meng Li and Sword 13 collided with each other, yet Duan Lingtian and the others were utterly incapable of seeing it clearly because their speeds were truly too swift. Bang, 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 when the both of them fought and collided with each other, it caused the airflow in the sky to explode out and give rise to waves of piercingly cold gales that blew onto the clothes of Duan Lingtian and the others to the point of fluttering. While Sword 13 and Meng Li fought, their figures occasionally vanished into thin air before the eyes of Duan Lingtian and the others, and they sometimes appeared once more. Based on the state of the 2, they seemed to be on par. In the sky, countless ancient horned dragon silhouettes bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced out and fought each other, and it looks to be an extremely horrifying battle. As expected of the publicly acknowledged genius of the House of Swords, Sword 13, you've just stepped into the 9th level of the Void Transformation stage, yet you're already able to fight me equally. You deserve to be proud. An aged voice sounded out, and it was the voice of the Skywolf Fort's Vice Fort Master, Meng Li. Shameless boasting, Sword 13's cold voice sounded out, and in the next moment, everyone present felt an even more fierce aura surged out from Sword 13. In the next moment, it seemed as if numerous ancient horned mammoths had appeared in the sky, and Sword 13's strength seemed to have obtained an enormous increase at this moment. Swish! The sword howl that tore apart the sky stopped abruptly. In the next moment, everyone saw that Sword 13 appeared and stood proudly in the sky, whereas the 3-foot-long blade in his hand had flowing lights revolving on it, and it was dripping with dazzling and resplendent fresh blood. In the distance, Meng Li appeared as well, but his countenance was slightly pale. It wasn't just that, if one were to look carefully, one would be able to see a faint sword mark left on Meng Li's hand, a sword mark that had been treated. Senior is so strong, Duan Lingtian was shocked. Based on what Meng Li said, Sword 13 had only recently broken through to the 9th level of the Void Transformation stage, whereas, Meng Li had broken through a long time ago. But even then, he wasn't a match for Sword 13. Sword 13, you really deserve to be the publicly acknowledged peerless genius of the House of Swords. You've only just broken through to the 9th level of the Void Transformation stage, yet you're capable of suppressing me. I have to admit that you're extremely strong. Meng Li stood in the distance and looked at Sword 13 with a serious expression. Meng Li, your Skywolf Fort must give me an explanation for the incident today no matter what, otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. At this moment, Sword 13's gaze was cold, and he completely wasn't so casual as when he chatted with the young geniuses earlier and seemed to have transformed into a matchless god of slaughter. The eyes of all the young geniuses that chose to join the Blade Sect lit up in unison. This was the Vice Sect Master of the Blade Sect that they wanted to join, and at the same time that such strength caused them to be filled with anticipation, they felt a greater sense of security. Swoosh! Suddenly, a wave of howls of the wind swept over, and then, a familiar figure appeared before Duan Lingtian and the others. Feng Wei. Duan Lingtian's face went grim when he saw the person that had arrived. When he noticed the fierce and greedy gaze Feng Wei shot at him, he knew that Feng Wei had come for him. Wait, greed. Duan Lingtian's heart jerked. He was vaguely able to guess what it meant when Feng Wei revealed greed upon looking at him. Perhaps there was something that Feng Wei urgently wanted in his possession, or more precisely speaking, it was something that the Skywolf Fort wanted. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the Skywolf Fort to send out 4 Vice Fort Masters. Feng Wei, you've come just in time, I'll leave that Duan Lingtian to you. Yu Tang, you join forces with me to suppress Sword 13. Ning Can, you deal with Saber 5. Meng Li revealed a smile and issued out orders when he saw Feng Wei arriving. As soon as Meng Li finished speaking, he charged towards Sword 13 with the other Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort, Yu Tang, and they approached menacingly without holding back in the slightest. Sword 13's expression had already become grim early on when Feng Wei appeared, as he never imagined that the Skywolf Fort had actually sent out such a force for the sake of Duan Lingtian. 4 Vice Fort Masters had been deployed. But when faced with the joint forces of Meng Li and Yu Tang, he quickly didn't have the state of mind to think why the Skywolf Fort acted in this way, and his figure flashed out to fight with Meng Li and Yu Tang. He wasn't afraid of a single Meng Li, and so long as he was given the time, it wouldn't be a problem for him to kill Meng Li. If he utilized his full strength, he would at most need 3 strikes to surely reap away Yu Tang's life. But when Meng Li and Yu Tang were combined together, it caused him to have the feeling as if he had the strength yet was unable to exert it, causing him to barely be able to be on par with them. Saber 5, I've wanted to fight you since long ago. Ning Can looked at Saber 5 as he shouted out coldly, and then he flashed out as if he'd transformed into an eagle that whistled in the air as he charged towards Saber 5. You think I'm afraid of you? Saber 5 laughed with disdain as the broad saber in his hand flashed out with wide movements as it tore through the sky, and he moved fearlessly to intercept Ning Can and become locked in battle with Ning Can. Be obedient. Don't blame me for being ruthless if anyone dares to flee. Feng Wei's gaze flashed past Duan Lingtian and the others before finally descending onto Duan Lingtian, and a wisp of a cold smile suffused the corners of his mouth. Duan Lingtian, I've really underestimated you. As soon as Feng Wei said this, it caused all the young geniuses including Feng Tianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyang to look at Duan Lingtian in unison, and all of them felt that Feng Wei's words had a hidden meaning. They felt shock and curiosity from the bottoms of their hearts towards the Skywolf Fort's actions of deploying such a great force for the sake of Duan Lingtian. Now, I'll give you a chance, make a vow with the 9 heavenly tribulation that you'll be eternally loyal to my Skywolf Fort and I can spare your life. Otherwise, this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Feng Wei's gaze gradually became cold as he spoke with an icy cold and bone-piercing voice that caused the group of young geniuses present to be unable to help but shiver, and they felt a chill run down their spines. Feng Wei actually wanted to make Duan Lingtian make such a vow. Once this vow was made, it would mean that Duan Lingtian would be tied to the Skywolf Fort for his entire lifetime and be unable to betray the Skywolf Fort, nor do anything harmful to the Skywolf Fort. Otherwise, he would be blasted to death by the 9 heavenly tribulation. Besides that, Feng Wei's words indicated that he would kill Duan Lingtian today if Duan Lingtian didn't make this vow, or perhaps, he would kill Duan Lingtian now. Be loyal to the Skywolf Fort? Duan Lingtian sneered. If I only have this choice, then I'd rather die. Then die. Feng Wei revealed a ruthless expression as a terrifying aura swept out from him, and then he took a step forward as his imposing aura effused out to blast down onto Duan Lingtian. Bang! Duan Lingtian's expression sank slightly when being pressured by Feng Wei's imposing aura, and then a talisman appeared out of this air in his tightly clenched right hand. It was precisely one of the 2 remaining talismans left to him by his father. Right when Duan Lingtian intended to throw the talisman out and annihilate Feng Wei, a figure appeared like a shadow to block before him. Uncle Feng. Duan Lingtian's heart shook when he saw the red-clothed middle-aged man that stood before him, and he said with an anxious expression, Uncle Feng, you're not a match for him, quickly step aside. Haha, if I, Feng Wudao, am even unable to protect my son-in-law, then what's the point in living? Feng Wudao started laughing when he heard Duan Lingtian, and his laughter was unrestrained as he faced death with a smile. Uncle Feng, I can. Right when Duan Lingtian wanted to say he was able to deal with Feng Wei, 4 figures had appeared by Feng Wudao, and they firmly protected Duan Lingtian behind them with Feng Wudao. Feng Tianwu, Su Li, Zhang Shouyang, and Tom Yu. All of you get out of the way. When he noticed the terrifying aura that surged up from Feng Wei's body, Duan Lingtian's expression instantly went grim as he hurriedly flew out with the intention of locking onto Feng Wei and throwing out the talisman in his hand. But unfortunately, he was still too late. Bang! Feng Wei casually raised his hand, causing a mighty palm strike to slap out, and a wave of endless continuous sounds of air exploding sounded out in the sky. The terrifying energy pressed down onto Feng Wudao and the others, blasting the 5 of them flying. Ah! Pooh! The countenance of the 5 people led by Feng Wudao went pale, then they repeatedly spat out a few mouthfuls of blood in a sorry state, and their bodies were on the brink of collapse. Die! Duan Lingtian's gaze went cold as he stared firmly at Feng Wei and the talisman in his hand seemed ready to fly out. Right at this moment, swoosh, 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 numerous swift figures instantly appeared behind Feng Wei like shadows. 10 old men that wore the green-colored uniform of the Skywolf Fort glared fiercely at Duan Lingtian and the others, and their bodies emitted strands of ruthless auras. 10 Skywolf Fort elders. When he saw the silver eyes of the Skywolves on badges on the old men's chests, Duan Lingtian's face went grim, and the talisman he was just intending to throw out had been put away by him. At this moment, even if he tossed out the talisman and is able to kill Feng Wei, he would be unable to escape doom. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of utilizing the talisman to kill the strongest Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort and allow Sword 13 to turn around the situation alone, but the old fellow was truly too far away from him and was locked in battle with Sword 13, so it was difficult to catch sight of that old fellow's figure. Ha! Right at this moment, an explosive shout sounded out, and it drew the gazes of Duan Lingtian and the others. It was Saber 5 who'd blasted Ning Can flying with a single strike. Subsequently, his icy cold gaze abruptly shot towards the 10 Skywolf Fort elders. 834 Chapter 835, Caught Up. Kill. Saber 5 coldly spat out a word before charging towards the 10 elders of Skywolf Fort like a tiger that had entered a pack of wolves, and with a swing of his saber, 3 Skywolf Fort elders had died under his saber in the blink of an eye. Saber 5. Ning Can and Feng Wei's face went grim when they saw this, and they charged madly at Saber 5 before joining forces against him. You 7 bring Duan Lingtian back. At the same time, Ning Can, who'd joined forces with Feng Wei to temporarily suppress Saber 5, ordered the remaining 7 elders with a cold voice. Only now did the 7 Skywolf Fort elders recover from the shock of 3 of their companions being killed, and their gazes descended onto Duan Lingtian at the first possible moment. All of them knew Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian recognized them as well. The 10 elders that came behind Feng Wei were the 10 elders that had appeared during the martial competition earlier. The remaining 7 elders launched an attack at the same time to pounce towards Duan Lingtian, and they took Duan Lingtian to be their prey. HMPH. The gaze of Feng Wudao, who'd consumed a healing medicinal pill to recover some of his injuries, went cold, and he flew out to charge towards a Skywolf Fort Elder and stop him. That Skywolf Fort Elder was in existence at the 4th level of the Void Transformation stage as well, and for a time, he was locked in combat with Feng Wudao. The other 6 elders continued charging towards Duan Lingtian. Big brother Duan, watch out. Duan Lingtian. Brother Lingtian, Master. Feng Tianwu, Su Li, Zhang Shouyang, and Ta Mu's injuries hadn't had the time to completely recover when they pounced towards those 6 elders of Skywolf Fort with the intention of stopping them. But unfortunately, only a single elder made a move, and his strength at the Void Transformation stage swept out to easily blast them flying. For a time, 4 of them suffered even more injuries. The elder of the Skywolf Fort didn't strike a killing blow, otherwise, it would be impossible for Feng Tianwu's group of 4 to survive. 6. Duan Lingtian's expression was extremely unsightly as he looked at the 6 elders that pounced towards him. 6 existences at the Void Transformation stage, yet the talismans in his possession could only kill 2 of them. But after he killed 2 of them, there would be another 4 who remained, so it seemed to be meaningless. He glanced at the strongest Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort, Meng Li, whose figure was moving rapidly and indeterminately as he fought intensely with Sword 13. If he utilized the talisman to kill Meng Li, then Sword 13 would surely be able to turn around the situation with his strength. But the problem was Meng Li, who was in a state of battle, had a speed so swift that he was utterly unable to lock onto Meng Li. If he wanted to annihilate someone with the talisman, then he must first lock onto them for a period of time. In the end, Duan Lingtian completely abandoned this thought. Even if I'm no match for them, I have to try. I'd rather die in battle than be captured. Duan Lingtian's eyes went cold as he looked at the 6 elders of Skywolf Fort, and then the origin energy on his body skyrocketed before combining with his material wind concept to transform into layers of a flashing gale that coiled around his body. Bang! The band that tied Duan Lingtian's long hair broke, causing his long hair to flutter with the wind, and the aura on his body rose ceaselessly. Right when Duan Lingtian intended to withdraw the quasi-royal grade spirit sword and fight desperately for his life. Swish! A over 10-meter-long enormous sword light descended from the skies with an imposing aura that shot into the sky like a rainbow and plunged towards the 6 elders that were charging towards Duan Lingtian. The 6 elders went grim as they attacked jointly and were barely able to endure this terrifying sword light, yet they still needed a certain amount of time to destroy it. Duan Lingtian, leave, quickly. Survive. Right when Duan Lingtian was stunned by this scene, a voice that was like thunder swept out to enter his ears. Senior. Duan Lingtian's eyes squinted as he looked at Sword 13, who was locked in battle with the 2 Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort, and he realized that it was Sword 13 who lent him a hand just now. Master, leave quickly. Meanwhile, Ta Mu reacted and charged towards Duan Lingtian before flashing off towards the distance with Duan Lingtian. When Feng Tianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyang recovered from their shock, Ta Mu and Duan Lingtian had already left far away with a speed so swift that they were unable to keep up. Big brother Duan, you must survive. Feng Tianwu stood in the sky and thought silently in her heart. With her speed, not to mention she was unable to chase after Duan Lingtian, even if she did, she would only become a burden. So she chose to stay behind. Su Li and Zhang Shouyang had almost similar thoughts. Right at this moment, besides the Skywolf Fort Elder that was locked in combat with Feng Wudao, the remaining 6 had finally destroyed the over 10-meter-long sword light. Want to flee? The 6 elders looked at the 2 figures that moved further and further into the distance and were gradually becoming 2 small dots, and they revealed cold smiles as they soared off in pursuit. *T. Feng Tianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyang went grim as they hurriedly chased up with the intention of stopping the 6 elders. But unfortunately, just a single one of the elders' attack had easily blasted them back. Sword 13 and Saber 5's expressions were extremely unsightly as well. They were utterly unable to free themselves to go assist Duan Lingtian as the 4 Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort had the intention of suppressing them. If it was at a normal time, as the Vice Sect Masters of the Blade Sect, it was sufficient for them to be extremely proud for being able to fight a battle that was 2 against 1 with 4 Skywolf Fort Vice Fort Masters. But now they didn't have such a feeling. They were only worried about Duan Lingtian's safety. Meng Li, after today, your Skywolf Fort is the mortal enemy of our Blade sect. Sword 13's voice was chilly as it sounded out, and it was filled with ruthlessness. Sword 13, don't you forget that you aren't the sect master of the Blade sect yet, so you don't have the qualifications to represent the entire Blade sect. Meng Li's voice sounded out with slight ridicule. Moreover, 3 elders of my Skywolf Fort have died today, whereas no one from your Blade sect has died. Exchanging Duan Lingtian for the death of 3 of our Skywolf Fort's elders ought to not be too much, right? HMPH. Sword 13 grunted coldly. He was just casually threatening earlier and naturally knew that it was impossible for the Blade sect to so easily go to war with the Skywolf Fort. Not to mention no one from the Blade sect had died, whereas 3 elders of the Skywolf Fort had died. Even if Duan Lingtian really died and no one from the Skywolf Fort died, the Blade sect might not stand out for Duan Lingtian. After all, Duan Lingtian was insignificant to the Blade sect now. It was impossible for the Blade sect to shed all pretenses and even go to war with the Skywolf Fort for the sake of Duan Lingtian. Junior brother Sword, who cares? Since these bastards from the Skywolf Fort have provoked us, then even if we kill all of them, that old fellow from the Skywolf Fort will have nothing to say. Saber 5 shouted out explosively as the saber light on the broad saber in his hand shone brightly before flashing straight towards Ning Qian and Feng Wei, and he wasn't the slightest bit in a position of disadvantage while fighting 2 enemies, causing him to seem like a peerless war god. Master is so formidable. In the distant crowd of young geniuses that stood quietly on the spot, Long Yun, who'd never made a single move since the beginning, looked at Saber 5 with an expression of admiration. The other young geniuses had excited expressions as well. Sword 13 and Saber 5 were fighting 4 opponents and suppressing 4 vice fort masters of the Skywolf Fort, and it shocked them greatly. As for Duan Lingtian and Ta Emu's life or death, they didn't care. On the other side, Feng Tianwu, Zhang Shouyang, and Su Li looked as the figures of the 6 elders that pursued Duan Lingtian vanished before their eyes, and they realized that they were unable to be of help to Duan Lingtian. Now they could only hope that Duan Lingtian and Ta Emu would be able to quickly find a place to hide themselves and escape calamity. The 3 of them that were filled with worry didn't stay idle and moved to help Feng Wudao deal with the elder of Skywolf Fort. That elder of Skywolf Fort felt terrified the more he fought Feng Wudao. At the beginning, he discerned that this red-clothed middle-aged man had just recently broken through to the 4th level of the Void Transformation stage, and he would be able to casually deal with the middle-aged man. Before they departed, they'd received the orders of the Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort, and they were prohibited from killing anyone from the Blade sect besides Duan Lingtian. So he held back. Later on, he noticed his opponent became stronger as the battle went on, and at this moment, he'd practically utilized his entire strength, yet his opponent was still capable of fighting him on par. Freak, freak. In the end, the Skywolf Fort elder that fell into a disadvantaged position roared ceaselessly in his heart. Meanwhile, Feng Tianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyang had come over to join forces with Feng Wudao to deal with this elder of the Skywolf Fort, and they created some small troubles for the elder. Sometimes, a small bit of troubles was sufficient to become a huge trouble. Just like now, after the interference of Feng Tianwu's group of 3, the elder who'd already been suppressed by Feng Wudao, who became stronger as the battle progressed, revealed a flaw. The flaw was used by Feng Wudao, and his sword flashed out like a bolt of lightning that instantly penetrated the chest of this elder and heavily injured him. Subsequently, Feng Wudao attacked even more swiftly, and the sword in his hand even developed a few tens of sword lights that increased to over 100 sword lights in the blink of an eye and covered the heavens and the earth as they swept down at the elder. The rain of sword lights descended to cause the elder to receive even more injuries and be in an even more sorry state. If it was a normal time, he would utterly not take a flashy sword skill like this seriously, but the problem was he'd suffered serious injuries now, and he had to do his best to be barely able to protect his vital points. Swish! A sword strike that was like a stroke from the gods easily slashed past the elder's throat and killed him. After the elder of Skywolf Fort died, Feng Wudao put away his sword and stood on the spot. Then he looked at Feng Tianwu's group of 3 before looking towards the surroundings, and his face went grim. Where are Lingtian and Ta Emu? Big brother Duan and Ta Emu have just fled, but those 6 elders have pursued them. Feng Tianwu's beautiful face was filled with worry as she laughed bitterly. At this moment, she hated herself for being too weak and being unable to help her big brother Duan. Which direction did they head towards? Feng Wudao asked with a low voice. In the next moment, Feng Wudao, who found out about the direction Duan Lingtian left and flashed out to transform into a bolt of lightning that pursued towards that direction. In the sky above a vast plains, two figures flashed past. It was precisely Duan Lingtian and Tom Yu who just fled. Master, we're really unfortunate, there isn't even a place to hide in such a huge plains. Tom Yu, who flew forward, couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Duan Lingtian's expression was unsightly as well. Everywhere they passed all along the way were a plains or a desert, and it was impossible to find a place to hide temporarily. Swoosh, 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 After a short moment, Duan Lingtian and Tom Yu stopped moving because those 6 elders of Skywolf Fort had already caught up and surrounded them. 835 Chapter 836, The Voice from Within the Devilseal Tablet. Both of you can feel proud for being able to flee so far under our pursuit. An elder of Skywolf Fort looked at Duan Lingtian and Tom Yu as he spoke indifferently. Elders, can all of you let us off? Just say you didn't find us when you report back. How about it? Tom Yu grinned and completely didn't have the realization that he'd become a trapped beast. However, not a single person paid attention to Tom Yu. If all of you are afraid of not obtaining any benefit from letting us off, then all of you can be at ease. Look at my master, he's merely 28 yet possesses a cultivation at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage, and his future is limitless. It's even to the extent that even your Skywolf Fort's Fort Master might not be able to compare to him in the future. As he finished speaking, Ta Emu's tone contained slight temptation. So long as all of you let me off, it's similar to giving my master a great favor today, and in the future. Shut up. An elder seemed to be unable to endure Ta Emu's ceaseless chattering, and he shouted out coldly to interrupt Tom Yu. Vice Fort Master Feng said that we should kill them once catching up to them. We only have to bring back their spatial rings. One of the elders of Skywolf Fort spoke with a chilly voice. Instantly, the other elders revealed killing intent as they looked at Duan Lingtian and Tom Yu, and origin energy and material concept combines on their bodies as a terrifying might seemed ready to come out. Spatial ring. Duan Lingtian stood in the sky, yet his expression remained calm while fallen into such danger. Because he knew that it was useless even if he panicked now, and only by maintaining a calm state would he perhaps be able to find a chance to survive. Feng Wei revealed greedy from his eyes when he saw me earlier. Obviously, he wants something from me. Now, these people want my spatial ring. Duan Lingtian's heart sank. What exactly did they want? For a time, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be slightly bewildered. Could it be the quasi-royal grade spirit sword? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but arouse this thought in his heart. After all, when he fought Qifeng today, he'd once utilized the quasi-royal grade spirit sword to shatter the arrow Qifeng shot out. But he was extremely sure that besides the emotion-severing sect's master, Payan, there ought to be no one including Sword 13 that had discerned the sword he used at the time was extraordinary. Unless the elusive fort master of the Skywolf Fort was concealed in the shadows and noticed how extraordinary the quasi-royal grade spirit sword was, but is this even possible? Thoughts spun in Duan Lingtian's mind as he ceaselessly pondered about various possibilities. Suddenly, a flash of enlightenment appeared in Duan Lingtian's mind. Besides that, Zishang repeatedly said that I won't be able to live for long, and he said the same when I left. Could it be that it's because of him? Duan Lingtian gasped when he thought up to here. As far as he was concerned, that madman Zishang was capable of anything. But, what did he rely on to convince the Skywolf Fort to deploy such a force to deal with me? Moreover, they seem to want something from in my spatial ring, Duan Lingtian pondered. In next to no time, a broken stone tablet appeared in Duan Lingtian's mind without reason or rhyme, and it was impossible to eliminate. Right, how could I have forgotten the Devilseal tablet? During the Darken Dynasty's competition that day, the soul hiding within Zishang's body had once mentioned the Devilseal tablet after possessing Zishang. In other words, he knows of the Devilseal tablet, and it's extremely likely that he knows the origins of the Devilseal tablet. Moreover, the Devilseal tablet in my possession is something Zishang dreams to obtain. After all, if I don't have the Devilseal tablet, he wouldn't fall to the extent of being countered by me in every aspect. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Now Duan Lingtian could determine that Zishang was the one behind everything. Not to mention the Devilseal tablet's ability to suppress souls, just its amplification strength of 100% is sufficient to make any third-rate power in the foreign lands to fight to the death. Since the soul in Zishang's body knows of the Devilseal tablet, I presume he knows its ability extremely well and even might know the amplification strength of the Devilseal tablet. Even if Zishang only mentioned the amplification ability of the Devilseal tablet before Ning Can, the Skywolf Fort would surely go mad for it. If the Devilseal tablet that provides an amplification of 100% were to fall in the hands of the Skywolf Fort's master, the Skywolf Fort would even be able to suppress the various third-rate powers like the Blade Sect, Empyrean Temple, and Emotion Severing Sect. Duan Ling Tian took a deep breath. The more he thought about, the surer he was. The target of the people before him was precisely the Devilseal tablet that lays within his spatial ring. Swoosh! Suddenly, a wave of terrifying howls of the wind swept over, causing Duan Ling Tian's entire body to tremble as if it was struck by lightning, and his back even flowed with cold sweat. Master, watch out! Practically at the exact same time, an explosive shout sounded out by Duan Ling Tian's ears. Bang! An enormous band resounded out, and it caused Duan Ling Tian to be unable to help but raise his head to look. With a single glance, he saw the robust figure that blocked right before him. However, at this moment, the aura of this robust figure was weakening. A fist penetrated through Ta Emu's chest, and it was the fist of the Skywolf Fort Elder that attacked suddenly. What a touching scene! The Elder casually withdrew his fist, and water concept suffused out as his hand moved out to wash away the blood on his hand. On the other hand, a hideous bloody hole appeared in Ta Emu's chest and ceaselessly sprayed blood, and in the blink of an eye, it tainted half Ta Emu's body, yet he still forcefully and bitterly held on. Master, Ta Mu struggled for a moment and looked at Duan Ling Tian with great difficulty, and he seemed to want to say something. But he hadn't been able to finish speaking when his body trembled abruptly and was completely devoid of any signs of life before plunging down from midair and falling onto the plains below. Ta Mu! Duan Ling Tian's pupils constricted abruptly. Never had he imagined that Ta Mu would use his own body to block the fist of the Skywolf Fort's Elder for him. After all, it could be said that there was utterly no relationship between him and Ta Mu. If one really wanted to speak about any relationship, then it would be none other than Ta Mu one-sidedly wanting to take him as master and wanted to learn the soul skill, Thousand Illusions, from him. Yet now, it was precisely a person like this, a person that he was unwilling to take as a disciple no matter what, that had stopped the attack of the Skywolf Fort Elder and saved his life. How great courage would be needed to do this? Moreover, this wasn't something that only needed courage, it also required someone that was worthy of someone acting in this way. Was it worth to do that for me? Duan Ling Tian's heart shook, and he seemed to be speaking to himself yet also seemed to be asking Ta Mu who'd already died. As far as he was concerned, since the beginning that Ta Mu wanted to take him as master until that moment, he's never treated Ta Mu properly. It was even to the extent that he'd berated Ta Mu repeatedly and wanted to make Ta Mu give up. But what about Ta Mu? Ta Mu always seemed as if nothing happened, allowing Duan Ling Tian to berate and refuse him as if nothing had happened. I'm sorry. Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian's eyes were filled with tears that were ready to flow out at any moment. These tears were his guilt to Ta Mu. If time could flow backwards for even a moment, he would absolutely not treat Ta Mu so coldly and indifferently as he did before. But now, he didn't have the chance anymore. Ta Mu was dead. Dead right before him, and he'd died for his sake. Your life can't be said to be lived in vain since someone was willing to die for you. After keeping silent for a short moment, the 6 elders returned to their senses successively, and then one of them looked at Duan Ling Tian with a face covered in killing intent. Now, you should follow him. Finally, Duan Ling Tian returned to his sense, and the guiltiness he felt to Ta Mu completely transformed into bone-piercing hatred towards the 6 Skywolf Fort elders and towards the entire Skywolf Fort. A debt of blood must be repaid by blood. But did he have the strength now? Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian's countenance went exceedingly pale as he clenched his fists tightly to the point his nails pierced into his palm, and after a wave of piercing pain, fresh blood flowed out. Yet he seemed to have utterly not noticed all this. I want strength. I want formidable strength. I want the strength to annihilate them, annihilate the Skywolf Fort, and even annihilate everything. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian's yearning for strength in his heart had practically arrived at the limit. The violet clothed on his body was coiled by waves of strong winds and fluttered. His long hair that was scattered around him because the band that tied his hair had broken even fluttered with the wind, and it was suffused with layers of azure-colored strong winds. Whoosh! In the sky, the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth rose abruptly to first cause 60 ancient horned dragon silhouettes to appear before another 30 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared. 4th level of the void interpretation stage. 2nd level intermediate wind concept. No wonder you were the first to leave the illusory crypt in the second round of the martial competition. So it turns out that you've always been concealing your cultivation, and you're actually a 4th level void interpretation stage martial artist. An elder spoke with surprise. He wasn't present during the 3rd and 4th round, so he didn't know that Duan Lingtian had broken through later on, and he thought that Duan Lingtian had been concealing his cultivation. 4th level void interpretation stage at the age of 28, even if it's in the entire Cloud continent, such natural talent can be considered to be monstrous. What a pity, the elder who'd used the age measuring pearl to measure Duan Lingtian's age during the martial competition before felt pity for Duan Lingtian. I've killed many people in my lifetime, yet I've never killed a genius martial artist like you. Even if you die today, we won't forget you. The corners of an elder's mouth curled into a cold smile as he spoke indifferently. The material concept on the bodies of the 6 elders swept out, causing their robes to flutter without the wind, and their gazes descended onto Duan Lingtian in unison. As far as they were concerned, the violet-clothed young man before them was bound to become a dead spirit at their hands today. On the other hand, at the same time that Duan Lingtian was shouting ceaselessly in his heart, he noticed the spatial ring on his hand was trembling. With a command in his heart, Duan Lingtian noticed that the Devilseal tablet in the space within his spatial ring seemed to have become restless, and it was even more violent than before. When Duan Lingtian's consciousness encountered the Devilseal tablet, his soul throbbed, and there seemed to be a voice that was filled with temptation speaking to him. Let me out, I can give you boundless strength. 836 Chapter 837, Violet hair and scarlet red eyes. At the start, Duan Lingtian thought it was a hallucination. But after a few times, he realized that all of this wasn't a hallucination. Boundless strength, exactly how boundless? Duan Lingtian muttered to himself. Duan Lingtian, who'd gone slightly mad from the death of Tom Yu and the waves of soundless shouting later on, suddenly commanded with his heart and somehow withdrew the Devilseal tablet. Whoosh! The Devilseal tablet appeared before Duan Lingtian and floated there. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian noticed that the Devilseal tablet at this moment was greatly different than before, and there were strands of black mist that coiled around the entire Devilseal tablet. Moreover, when this black mist touched the Devilseal tablet, they actually strangely transformed into black-colored liquid, and it seemed to have formed into numerous tiny streams as they flowed on the ancient characters on the Devilseal tablet that Duan Lingtian was unable to recognize. As he stared blankly at the Devilseal tablet that floated in midair, even Duan Lingtian didn't know why, but he actually stretched out his hand unexpectedly and pressed his hand onto the Devilseal tablet. The Devilseal tablet felt icy cold to the touch, causing Duan Lingtian to be unable to help but shudder, and his body started to tremble slightly. At the same time, Duan Lingtian clearly saw that the black-colored liquid flowing on the Devilseal tablet actually flowed along his fingers and bore into his hand when his hand pressed onto the tablet. After the clearly visible black-colored liquid bore into his fingers, it stretched towards the center of his palm, then the back, and then it subsequently flowed up along his arm. Icy cold and bone-piercing coldness filled Duan Lingtian's entire arm, causing him to sober up, and his face went grim. This isn't good. Presently, Duan Lingtian wasn't in a daze as before, and at this instant, he noticed that his arm that touched the Devilseal tablet was out of his control. It was as if its control was seized away by another. At the same time, Duan Lingtian felt an icy cold energy follow along the meridians in his shoulder, and it bore into his internal organs while moving along his neck towards his head at the same time. It went straight into his soul. What exactly is going on? This was Duan Lingtian's final thought before he lost consciousness. In the distance, the 6 elders of Skywolf Fort that had surrounded Duan Lingtian to the point he wouldn't be able to flee even if he grew wings couldn't help but be stunned when they saw Duan Lingtian suddenly withdraw a broken stone tablet. When they saw black-colored mist being emitted from the broken stone tablet and even transform into black-colored liquid before stretching onto the complicated words inscribed on the stone tablet that were difficult to recognize, they were dumbstruck. What's this? They only recovered from their shock when they saw Duan Lingtian press his hand onto the stone tablet before the black-colored liquid that flowed on the words inscribed on the stone tablet completely fused into Duan Lingtian's body. When they recovered from their shock, Duan Lingtian's eyes that suddenly lit up had dimmed down once more. After it dimmed down, it was suddenly suffused with a scarlet red color. The scarlet red eyes were extremely deep like the boundless starry sky, and it contained an unusual charm that caused others to seem to almost become immersed into it upon taking a look at it. These scarlet red eyes that contained a charm that could drag out one's soul caused the 6 elders of Skywolf Fort to become grim. They vaguely realized that some sort of change was occurring on Duan Lingtian, and this change caused them to feel slightly terrified in their hearts. His hair. Suddenly, an elder cried out in shock. The other 5 elders looked over when they heard this. Only now did they notice that when Duan Lingtian's eyes became scarlet red and deep, his black long hair that fluttered with the wind had instantly undergone a tremendous change. His shiny jet black hair had instantly turned into violet and devilish long hair, and every time his hair fluttered, it would be like numerous violet-colored pythons waving their tails. Can anyone tell me what the fuck is going on? This was the thought in the hearts of every single elder of Skywolf Fort. Bang! Right at this moment, a bang resounded out and shocked the 6 elders awake. They saw that Duan Lingtian, whose eyes had become scarlet red and had violet-colored long hair that fluttered about, has grabbed onto the broken stone tablet with a flip of his hand. At the same time, strands of black-colored mist were emitted from both Duan Lingtian's body and the broken stone tablet, and it was filled with an indescribable and terrifying aura. When they felt this aura from afar, the 6 elders felt coldness arise in their hearts. Kill him, one of the elders shouted out with alarm, and he seemed to want to use this to press down the terror in his heart. After he shouted out, a grade 3 spirit weapon appeared out of thin air in his hand and he charged at Duan Lingtian. In the sky, the phenomenon of the heavens and earth rose abruptly, then transformed into a few hundred ancient horned dragon silhouettes that dashed out along with him, and they bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced at Duan Lingtian. Swoosh, 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 the expressions of the other 5 elders became heavy, and they didn't dare dally before striking out with their full strength. The changes that occurred on Duan Lingtian caused them to feel terror and uneasiness from the bottom of their hearts, and at that instant, they only felt as if Duan Lingtian had become an entirely different person. The current Duan Lingtian brought extreme pressure to them. Kill! The 6 elders flashed towards Duan Lingtian from all directions as the energy on the grade 3 spirit weapons in their hands erupted completely towards Duan Lingtian. In the sky, a few thousands of ancient mammoth silhouettes formed a circle that rushed ceaselessly towards the center with an imposing might that shot into the sky like a rainbow. Lingtian. When the 6 elders launched an attack at Duan Lingtian, Feng Wudao arrived late, and he just happened to see the scene of Duan Lingtian being surrounded and attacked by the 6 elders. Presently, he didn't even have the time to think why Duan Lingtian's hair had become violet and eyes became scarlet red, nor did he have the time to think what was going on with the broken stone tablet in Duan Lingtian's hand that emitted a terrifying aura. Bang, 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 the weakest amongst the 6 elders was in existence at the 3rd level of the void transformation stage, whereas the strongest was at the 5th level of the void transformation stage. When they attacked all at once, their attacks covered the heavens and the earth as it swept towards Duan Lingtian. Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian made a move. He slowly raised his hand that was placed on the broken stone tablet before throwing up above him, causing it to float in the sky above him. In the next moment, a semi-translucent black-colored light barrier descended down onto Duan Lingtian with the broken stone tablet at the center, and it enveloped Duan Lingtian's entire body within it to form a protective barrier. Meanwhile, the full forced strikes of the 6 elders had arrived. Bang, 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 numerous strands of energy that were extremely terrifying and were even capable of annihilating a 6th-level void transformation stage expert combined together as they swept out, and they descended onto the semi-translucent black-colored barrier that stretched out from the broken stone tablet. A wave of enormous bangs that were like thunder resounded out as terrifying sounds of air exploding resounded out ceaselessly, and at the center of the explosion, numerous shapeless waves of air surged and swept out. Even Feng Wudao, who was 100 meters away, were struck by these waves of air to the point he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. How is this possible? Right when Feng Wudao's expression became unsightly and thought Duan Lingtian had already been killed by those 6 elders of Skywolf Fort, the scene that appeared ahead caused him to be flabbergasted. In the distance, the 6 elders who formed an encirclement had already stopped attacking. If one were to look carefully, one would be able to notice that their bodies were trembling intensely, and their eyes that focused ahead had even stared wide open and their faces were covered in disbelief. It was as if they saw something terrifying. How could it be possible? This isn't real. That stone tablet, could it be the thing the Vice Fort Masters are looking for? As they looked at Duan Lingtian, who was protected by the layer of semi-translucent light barrier and was utterly unharmed, the 6 elders were completely dumbstruck. In next to no time, their gazes shot towards the broken stone tablet above Duan Lingtian in unison. The light barrier that protected Duan Lingtian had precisely stretched out from there. Seize away this stone tablet and Duan Lingtian would be nothing to worry about. A mad thought arose in the heart of one of the elders, and then he flew out and flashed towards the broken stone tablet above Duan Lingtian with the intention of seizing it. Whoosh! Meanwhile, something flashed before the eyes of the other 5 elders, and then they noticed Duan Lingtian had instantly vanished on the spot. When he appeared once more, he'd already appeared at the side of the broken stone tablet. Impossible! How could this be possible? As they looked at their companion who had his energy dispersed and was grabbed and forcefully lifted up like a helpless chick in the hands of Duan Lingtian, the other 5 elders were dumbstruck. Elder Ping is in existence at the 5th level of the void transformation stage, yet Duan Lingtian has actually so easily subdued him. How could this be possible? At this moment, coldness couldn't help but arise in the hearts of the 5 elders. Crack! A clear and ear-piercing sound of bones breaking sounded out. Duan Lingtian, who stood in midair by the side of the broken stone tablet, squeezed with his hand, and he directly broke the neck of the elder in his hand. A 5th level void transformation stage martial artist, dead. Freak! The other 5 elders shuddered as they completely sobered, and they roared as they flew off in all directions. They didn't dare have the thought of killing Duan Lingtian now. What a joke! The strongest amongst them, Elder Ping, was subdued by Duan Lingtian with a single move. Moreover, his neck was broken and killed directly. Even if all of them joined forces against Duan Lingtian, the outcome wouldn't be much different. At this moment, they felt their scalps go numb, and they were unable to wrap their heads around why Duan Lingtian, who'd undergone an unusual transformation, would possess such formidable strength. At the same time that they fled, they felt the black-haired Duan Lingtian from before was so much kinder. Gulp! Feng Wudao fiercely gulped down a mouthful of saliva and muttered with an expression of disbelief. That's an existence at the 5th level of the void transformation stage, yet he was killed by Duan Lingtian in a single move. Is he really Lingtian? Uncertainty had just arisen in Feng Wudao's heart when he noticed the distance Duan Lingtian made a movement once more. Feng Wudao saw Duan Lingtian raise his hand, causing the airflow in the sky to form a clearly visible vortex that stretched out with a suction force that sucked the broken stone tablet in the sky into his hand, and then his entire body vanished into thin air before Feng Wudao's eyes. Exactly, he vanished into thin air. How swift! The scene before him caused Feng Wudao's eyes to be unable to help but constrict, and he revealed an expression of astonishment. 837 Chapter 838, Duan Lingtian is missing. After all, even when he witnessed the battle between Sword 13 and the 2 Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort, even though he was unable to see their figures extremely clearly, he was still capable of catching it slightly. Yet now he was utterly incapable of catching Duan Lingtian's figure. Whoosh! In the next moment, he saw Duan Lingtian, who held the broken stone tablet while his ghastly violet-colored hair fluttered, appeared by the side of a Skywolf Fort elder that was fleeing. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian's other hand flapped out, causing a deep and terrifying black-colored energy to sweep out and descend onto the elder, instantly annihilating him, and then Duan Lingtian vanished in the next instant. Bang! 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 Similarly casual punches struck out, and then other 4 elders that hadn't fled far were chased up one by him before being killed easily. Duan Lingtian struck so swiftly that the roiling energy of the heavens and earth was even unable to condense completely. Lingtian! Right when Duan Lingtian killed the final elder, Feng Wudao, who heaved a sigh of relief, looked at Duan Lingtian and cried out. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian vanished on the spot, and when he appeared once more, he'd already arrived before Feng Wudao. Lingtian, how? Feng Wudao, who just intended to ask Duan Lingtian why he suddenly possessed such a terrifying strength, stopped speaking abruptly. Because the present Duan Lingtian was staring at him with scarlet and deep eyes that caused him to feel a chill run down his spine. It wasn't just that. Duan Lingtian's hand was even raised up high with strands of dark black-colored energy coiled around it, and it emitted an aura that caused Feng Wudao to feel terror that came from the bottom of his heart. This action of Duan Lingtian's was extremely familiar to Feng Wudao, as Duan Lingtian had killed those 5 elders in this exact manner. Lingtian, it's me, Uncle Feng. As he looked at Duan Lingtian's palm that seemed as if it would descend at any moment, a chill ran down Feng Wudao's spine as his forehead broke out in cold sweat, and he couldn't help but speak out hastily. He didn't doubt in the slightest that he would be dead once Duan Lingtian's palm descended. Meanwhile, Feng Wudao realized something. Duan Lingtian seemed to have lost all reason. His eyes have become scarlet red, and his hair has become violet. Ling Tian, what exactly has happened to you? Feng Wudao was extremely puzzled in his heart. Uncle Feng. Finally, Duan Ling Tian opened his mouth with difficulty as he slowly spat out a few words, whereas the scarlet red in his eyes seemed to show signs of dispersion. Right, I'm Uncle Feng Wudao. When he saw Duan Ling Tian reacting and has gradually put down his raised hand, causing the terrifying and mysterious black-colored energy to disperse, Feng Wudao heaved a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, his back was completely drenched with cold sweat. In his eyes, the present Duan Ling Tian was even more terrifying than all those vice fort masters combined. Uncle Feng, there was still slight confusion within Duan Ling Tian's eyes as he shook his head lightly. He seemed to be recalling something, and his expression seemed to be one of slight pain. Ling Tian, what happened to you? Feng Wudao noticed something was amiss, causing his expression to go grim, and in the end, his gaze descended onto the broken stone tablet in Duan Ling Tian's hand. He had an extremely strange feeling that all the changes that occurred on Duan Ling Tian ought to be related to this stone tablet. This stone tablet wasn't unfamiliar to Feng Wudao. During the Darken Dynasty's martial competition that day, Duan Ling Tian had used this exact stone tablet to counter Zishang's secret technique. During the fourth round of the selections today, Duan Ling Tian had even utilized this stone tablet to make Zishang lack even the courage to ascend the arena. When he thought up to here, Feng Wudao slowly stretched out his hand with the intention of taking away the broken stone tablet in Duan Ling Tian's hand as he wanted to see if Duan Ling Tian would return to normal upon losing the stone tablet. But Feng Wudao had only just stretched out his hand when he noticed an extremely cold and gloomy aura assault him instantly, and it completely enveloped him. I have no ill intent. Feng Wudao withdrew his hand hastily when he saw Duan Ling Tian turn hostile instantly and look coldly and indifferently at him. Only now did he realize that he shouldn't have done that. Because at this moment, the scarlet color in Duan Ling Tian's eyes grew even deeper, and the black-colored aura emitted by him even caused the surrounding air to become cold. Whoosh! Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian raised his hand as the terrifying black-colored energy coiled on his palm, and it seemed as if it would descend onto Feng Wudao at any moment. Feng Wudao's nerves were strained as cold sweat flowed from his forehead, and his heart was filled with a perturbed feeling. He knew that his movement of wanting to take the broken stone tablet away from Duan Ling Tian had completely and utterly enraged Duan Ling Tian, who'd lost all reason. Uncle Feng, right when Feng Wudao thought Duan Ling Tian would strike his palm down onto him, he noticed that Duan Ling Tian spoke once more, and it caused him to be unable to help but heave a sigh of relief. Ling Tian, Feng Wudao was just intending to patiently lead and guide Duan Ling Tian to the point of recovering his reason when he noticed Duan Ling Tian had vanished before his eyes and vanished without a trace. Ling Tian, Feng Wudao's face went grim as he hurriedly glanced towards his surroundings, yet in the end, he didn't notice Duan Ling Tian's tracks and even didn't know which direction Duan Ling Tian had headed off to. *T. Ling Tian has lost all reason now. If he wanders randomly in this foreign lands, then I'm afraid his life will be in danger. Feng Wudao's expression became anxious as he looked towards the surroundings, yet he was at a loss about what to do. In the end, he could only search nearby, yet he was unable to notice any trace of Duan Ling Tian after searching for a long time, and he could only give up. Dusk descended when Feng Wudao returned to the place the Skywolf Fort elders were annihilated, and he noticed the group from the Blade sect had come over as well. Father. Feng Tianwu moved over to greet Feng Wudao when she saw him. Father, where did you go? What exactly happened here? Who killed these elders? I even saw Ta Emu's corpse, and only Big Brother Duan's whereabouts are unknown. Do you know where he went? Feng Tianwu's beautiful face was filled with anxiousness as she was most worried about the safety of Duan Ling Tian and her father earlier. Because she noticed that Ta Mu and the 6 elders had died. Now, when she saw her father unharmed, yet didn't see Duan Ling Tian, she couldn't help but be even more worried about Duan Ling Tian's safety. Feng Wudao glanced at the 7 corpses that lay scattered on the plains when he heard this, and then he was just about to speak when Sword 13, Saber 5, and the others had come over. When I chased over, I noticed the corpses of Ta Mu and the 6 elders. I didn't see Ling Tian. I went searching in the surroundings for a while yet didn't notice any trace he left behind. Feng Wudao sighed. As far as he was concerned, the incident from before was too peculiar. Especially the strength Duan Ling Tian revealed after undergoing that Unusual change, and it was absolutely a strength that surpassed the void transformation stage and even possibly attained the martial monarch stage. Moreover, all of this seemed to be related to the mysterious broken tablet. Besides that, according to what he reckoned, it was extremely likely that the reason the 4 Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort had moved out in unison and came for Duan Lingtian was for the sake of that broken stone tablet. Perhaps they'd found out about it from Zishang. It was precisely because of this that after some careful consideration, Feng Wudao had decided to conceal everything he saw, as he would be able to protect Duan Lingtian better like this. Otherwise, once the secret of the mysterious stone tablet was exposed, perhaps even the Blade sect would be tempted by it and do something bad to Duan Lingtian. What? Feng Tianwu was terrified to the point her beautiful face went pale when she heard this. Why did such a thing happen? Where could Big Brother Duan have gone? Su Li and Zhang Shouyang stood nearby with worried expressions as well. Sword 13 sighed after hearing what Feng Wudao said. I've inspected those 7 corpses, and Tom Yu ought to have been killed by the elders of Skywolf Fort. As for the elders of Skywolf Fort, they were killed by the same expert. Based on the distance the corpses of these 6 elders are distributed and the traces on their corpses, that expert's speed was extremely swift and even far surpasses me. When he spoke up to hear, Sword 13 took a deep breath before he said, moreover, the spatial rings on the corpses of those 6 elders are still there, and that expert obviously looked down upon their possessions. So, according to my estimation, it's extremely likely that it was a martial monarch stage expert that killed the 6 elders of Skywolf Fort before taking Duan Lingtian away. Sword 13 finished speaking in a single breath. A martial monarch stage expert. As soon as Sword 13 said this, besides Saber 5 who was prepared since long ago, the pupils of everyone including Feng Wudao couldn't help but constrict, and they had astounded expressions. Feng Wudao was like this because he was shocked by Sword 13's deduction. Never had he imagined that Sword 13's thoughts would be meticulous to this extent of being able to determine from the corpses of the 6 elders that it was a martial monarch stage expert that killed the 6 elders. The strength of Lingtian after he underwent that unusual change is indeed a strength that only a martial monarch stage expert can possess. But I keep having the feeling that exploding out with a strength like that isn't the slightest bit beneficial to Lingtian. Feng Wudao's heart couldn't help but be filled with worry when he thought of how Duan Lingtian looked after losing all reason. Big Brother Duan was taken away by a martial monarch stage expert. The worry of Feng Tianwu's face grew deeper when she heard Sword 13. Then what should we do now? How do we find that martial monarch stage expert and rescue Big Brother Duan? Tianwu. Sword 13 shook his head. You're in a state of disorder from being too worried. If Duan Lingtian was really taken away by a martial monarch stage expert, then he ought to be fine. It isn't only that, he might even obtain a great fortune. Yes, Su Li deeply agreed with his master's words. If that martial monarch stage expert wanted to harm Duan Lingtian, then Duan Lingtian would surely have faced a similar end as those 6 elders. Logically speaking, it's impossible for a martial monarch stage expert to kill a few elders of Skywolf Fort for no reason or rhyme, but since he made a move, it's most probably for the sake of saving Duan Lingtian. Since he saved Duan Lingtian, how could he possibly harm Duan Lingtian? 838. Chapter 839. A young woman that ran away from home. Needless to say, Su Li's judgment was extremely convincing, and it caused Feng Tianwu's expression to gradually ease up. Yes, Tianwu, Lingtian will surely be fine, as the saying goes, one who survives great disaster is destined for fortune. Said Feng Wudao. Feng Tianwu nodded lightly. Even though her mood had eased up, her peerlessly beautiful face was still suffused with a wisp of worry. Feng Wudao completely gave up the thought of telling Feng Tianwu the truth when he saw this. Otherwise, his daughter would surely be even more worried. Duan Lingtian had vanished into thin air without leaving any trace for Feng Wudao to search for him, so in the end, he could only return to the Blade sect with Sword 13 and the others. Vice Sect Master Sword, what happened to the 4 Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort? Feng Wudao asked curiously. When he came to chase after Duan Lingtian, Tom Yu, and the 6 elders earlier, Sword 13 and Saber 5 were in a fierce battle with the 4 Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort. Both sides were equally matched, and even if they fought for an entire day and night, they might not be able to determine a victor. They left after staying locked in combat with us for a period of time. Perhaps they thought that those elders of their Skywolf Fort had already succeeded and returned. Sword 13 sneered. They probably never dreamt that all the elders of their Skywolf Fort are dead. They went for wool and came home shorn. They deserve it, Saber 5 cursed, and then he sighed. But, what a pity for Tom Yu, such a good seedling has been killed by the members of Skywolf Fort just like this. Let's go. After a short moment, Sword 13 sighed before leading the others to continue on their way northeast towards the Blade Sect. The veil of night gradually descended. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. 4 figures came from the southwest, and they passed to the sky before swiftly arriving at the place Sword 13 and the others were at dusk. There are a few corpses there. The person in the lead of the 4 suddenly stopped moving forward before plunging down. The 3 people behind him followed him closely. Elder Ping, as he looked at the corpse of the old man that had his neck twisted and didn't show any signs of resistance, the expression of the old man that wore a green-colored uniform darkened. No wonder they never returned, it turns out that all of them died here. Meanwhile, the other 3 dragged 5 corpses over. All of them were killed with a single strike, and it can be seen from their wide-open eyes that they were extremely terrified before their deaths. They ought to have encountered an expert that was impossible for them to go against. Based on the distance their corpses were distributed and their injuries, the person that killed them wasn't simple. Even the fort master might not possess such a strength. In next to no time, the 3 old men and 1 middle-aged man looked at each other, and all of them saw astonishment in each other's eyes. A martial monarch. Subsequently, all 4 of them cried out in unison. These 4 people were the 4 vice-fort masters of Skywolf Fort that pursued the group from the Blade Sect and fought with Sword 13 and Saber 5. Meng Li, Ning Can, Yu Tang, and Feng Wei. After they returned, they originally thought that the 6 elders that pursued Duan Ling Tian had already returned, yet never had they imagined that the 6 elders had utterly not returned. It wasn't just that, they'd waited for a long time yet didn't see those 6 elders return. Instantly, the 4 of them decided to come over and take a look, and they wanted to see if they could discover any inkling. The outcome exceeded their expectations. The 6 elders of their Skywolf Fort seemed to have been killed by a martial monarch stage expert, and 5 of them were even chased after and killed in the process of fleeing in all directions. There's a trace of blood over there. Suddenly, Feng Wei cried out in a low voice and seemed to have noticed something. Instantly, the other 3 of them headed over together. In next to no time, they saw a simple grave nearby. There was a tombstone on the grave and based on the traces of dirt atop the grave, it had obviously been buried not long ago. Bang, bang, bang. Ning Clan strode a step forward before pushing out 3 times with his palm, and his vast origin energy combined material concept instantly turned the grave over. A robust corpse was also blasted out, and it fell heavily on the ground. It's Ta Mu's corpse. Feng Wei recognized who this corpse was with a single glance, and then he guessed. It ought to be the members of the Blade Sect that buried him. Could the 6 elders have been killed by the members of the Blade Sect? Yu Tang frowned. No, Meng Li shook his head. The injuries on the corpses are obviously from a time ago, moreover, the person that killed them is most probably a martial monarch stage expert. I haven't noticed any traces in the surroundings nor did I see Duan Ling Tian's corpse. Feng Wei searched in the surroundings for a moment and said, it's slightly strange. It's extremely likely that Duan Ling Tian has been taken away by that martial monarch stage expert. No matter how moody a martial monarch stage expert is, he wouldn't kill people for no reason. Especially people that are like ants in his eyes. Ning Can guessed. So I guess that the martial monarch stage expert made a move for the sake of rescuing Duan Ling Tian. Perhaps he took a fancy to Duan Ling Tian's natural talent and comprehension ability, or perhaps it's because of something else. As he finished speaking, Ning Can's expression darkened. The expressions of Meng Li's group of 3 weren't sightly either. The matter from today had undoubtedly pushed them and Duan Ling Tian to opposing sides. If Duan Ling Tian really followed by the side of a martial monarch stage expert, then once he asked the martial monarch stage expert to make a move in the future, their Skywolf Fort would be struck with calamity. Don't worry unnecessarily for now, all of this is only our guess, and perhaps the truth isn't like this. In the next, Meng Li was the first to recover from his shock, and he consoled them. Ning Can's group of 3 nodded. Let's return, Meng Li continued. We can forget the saint weapon in Duan Ling Tian's hands for now. The pressing matter at the moment is to properly prepare to deal with the opening of the Martial Emperor's treasure vault half a year from now. According to my knowledge, there's no less than 6 powers that know of the existence of that treasure vault. When he spoke up to hear, Meng Li looked at Ning Can. Ning Can, I heard the personal disciple you just took is a variant, and his innate ability is extraordinary. Properly foster him as his innate ability will be a trump card for the disciples of our Skywolf Fort after they enter the treasure vault. Yes, senior brother, Ning Can replied respectfully, and his face was suffused with a proud smile when he thought of that personal disciple of his. The four of them arrived and left hastily. As for the corpses of those 6 elders, they utterly disregarded them and casually tossed them in this vast plains, allowing them to await the arrival of wild beasts and fierce beasts. High above the sky of the darkened dynasty. Swoosh, swoosh. 2 figures that were absurdly swift flashed by, and they appeared in the sky above the darkened dynasty not too long later and stopped moving. Meanwhile, the owners of those 2 figures revealed themselves. Both of them were young women around the age of 15 and 16. One of the young women wore yellow clothes, her eyes were suffused with a cheeky sheen, and a single glance allowed one to know that she wasn't someone who could keep still. The other young woman wore green clothes and had a pretty appearance, and it could be discerned that she would surely be a drop-dead gorgeous beauty when she grew up. Most importantly, the green-clothed young woman seemed to be extremely tranquil when standing there, and it seemed like a scene that formed 2 extremes with the yellow-clothed young woman that was looking around. Shui Nai, this is the darkened dynasty you spoke of in the past. The green-clothed young woman asked with a pleasing and gentle voice that was like the voice of an oriole. Exactly, exactly, the yellow-clothed young woman nodded, and then she held the green-clothed young woman's hand before hastily plunging down. I heard Big Brother Ling Tian say that he wanted to participate in some martial competition of the 10 dynasties that day. I wonder if it has ended. A few years have passed now, it ought to have ended, right? Even though the green-clothed young woman was pulled down from midair by the yellow-clothed young woman, but she still maintained a tranquil ladylike posture as she lightly opened her lips and spoke in a pleasing tone. Won't we know if we go ask people? Asked the yellow-clothed young woman. Shui Nai, I think we should return earlier. If my father finds out that I sneaked out with you, he'll surely be furious. The green-clothed young woman spoke with slight worry. What are you afraid of? You have me. The yellow-clothed young woman spoke heroically. At that time, if Uncle Mew dares scold you, I'll burn off his hair. Now that I speak of it, Uncle Emu's appearance when he's bald is rather handsome. Don't. The green-clothed young woman laughed bitterly. Father's hair was kept for a long time before growing to its current length. If you do it again, then he'll probably become depressed. As far as she was concerned, her father was an overlord at any rate, yet he just happened to be meek like a rabbit before this little companion of hers. All right, you're so annoying. If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have brought you with me. The yellow-clothed young woman spoke with slight impatience. In next to no time, the 2 young women entered the capital of the darkened dynasty, and they went to a restaurant at the first possible moment before calling an attendant over. The yellow-clothed young woman was Han Shui Nai, who'd parted with Duan Ling Tian a few years ago, and she looked at the attendant as she asked. Has the martial competition of the 10 dynasties ended? Young miss, the martial competition of the 10 dynasties wasn't held in our darkened dynasty. According to my knowledge, the martial competition of the 10 dynasties will be held 1 year after the dynasty martial competition of our darkened dynasty ends. It ought to have ended a few days ago, said the attendant. Then do you know where the martial competition of the 10 dynasties was held? Asked Han Shui Nai. Young miss, you must be joking. How could people like us know this? The attendant laughed bitterly. Young miss, you want to know where the martial competition of the 10 dynasties was held? Suddenly, a frivolous voice sounded out, and a young man in embroidered clothes arrived before Han Shui Nai's table under the escort of 2 servants. What, you know about it? Han Shui Nai sized up the young man for a moment before asking with slight doubt. Of course. The young man in embroidered clothes raised his head, and he had a proud expression as he looked towards the nearby attendant and said, Tell this young miss who this young master is. Yes. The attendant seemed to be slightly afraid of the young man in embroidered clothes, and he hurriedly said to Han Shui Nai, Young miss, this young master is the 2nd young master of our darkened dynasty's Yi clan, young master Yi Shang. According to my knowledge, the older brother of young master Yi Shang, young master Yi Shao, had gone to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties half a year ago. 839 Chapter 840, Duan Ling Tian Awakens. Yi Shang. Han Shui Nai's beautiful brows knit slightly, and then she couldn't help but mutter. Why does it sound like the name of a woman? A man dares take such a name. Truly a shame. The young man in embroidered clothes was precisely the second young master of the Yi clan, Yi Shang, and his face sank slightly when he heard what Han Shuinai said. His name that sounded female had always been a thorn in his heart, and it was a taboo for him that no one had ever dared mention before him. My big brother Ling Tian's name is better, that's the name a man ought to have. As she finished muttering, Han Shuinai started smiling. Big brother Ling Tian, the attendant couldn't help but exclaim when he heard Han Shuinai. Young miss, the big brother Ling Tian you spoke of, could it be that his full name is Duan Ling Tian? You know my big brother Ling Tian. Han Shuinai's eyes lit up when she heard the attendant, and then she said, do you know where my big brother Ling Tian is? How could I possibly know young master Ling Tian? I was only lucky to see him from afar during the dynasty martial competition 1 year ago. Young master Ling Tian was too awe-inspiring that day, and in the end, he obtained the honor of being the first in the martial competition of our darkened dynasty. The attendant smiled. Presently, young master Ling Tian has probably not come back from the venue of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties like the older brother of young master Yi Shang. The first in the dynasty martial competition. Swoosh. Han Shuinai's eyes lit up as she said with a grin, as expected of the big brother of Han Shuinai, he's truly amazing, hey. Yi-hoo, oh, wait, Yi Shang, what are you running away for? You haven't told me where the martial competition of the 10 dynasties was held. Han Shuinai vanished into thin air before the attendant, and when she appeared once more, she'd already blocked before Yi Shang, who was just intending to sneak off, and spoke angrily with her hands on her waist. Yi Shang saw something flash before his eyes before noticing a figure had appeared there, and he instantly couldn't help but reveal a bitter smile. Why are all the people by Duan Ling Tian's side so abnormal? I can't afford to offend them, so can't I avoid them? Yi Zhang's heart felt exceedingly bitter. Actually, when he first laid eyes on Han Shuinai and the green-clothed young woman by Han Shuinai's side, he had ill intentions in his heart and even wanted to trick them back to the Yi clan estate. But when he heard Han Shuinai say Duan Ling Tian was her brother, the ill intent in his heart vanished completely, as he didn't dare offend Duan Ling Tian. Since he couldn't afford to offend her, couldn't he avoid her? But now it would seem that wanting to avoid her wasn't a simple task. I heard my old brother say that it seems to be held in the northern desert's ancient desert city. I only know this. Young miss, if there's nothing else, then I'll be leaving first. Yi Shang spoke as he hastily ran out of the restaurant with his 2 servants, and even faster than a rabbit. Northern desert, ancient desert city, Han Shuinai muttered, and then her eyes lit up. I remember now, I've gone there with Qing Nu. There seems to be a power called Skywolf Fort there, and their fort master's beard is rather fun to play with. I pulled it off completely the last time. A few years have passed now, so it ought to have grown, right? Han Shuinai spoke as she held the green-clothed young woman's hand and ran out. Shuinai, let's go. I'll take you to see a fun person, and we'll play the game of beard pulling with him. The green-clothed young woman was the companion that played and even cultivated with Han Shuinai since a young age, Mu Shuiyi. The corners of Mu Shuiyi's mouth couldn't help but be suffused with a bitter smile when she heard this. At the same time, her heart was filled with pity towards the fort master of the Skywolf Fort. No good came to anyone targeted by the little devil. This was something that she knew deeply from experience. The northern desert belonged to the northern border of the foreign lands, and it neighbored the 10 dynasties. Besides that, it occupied an area that was a few tens of times the area of the 10 dynasties. In the southern area of the northern desert, powers were as numerous as the clouds, and 4 of those powers reigned supreme. They were respectively the Skywolf Fort, Blade Sect, Empyrean Temple, and Emotion Severing Sect. At the east of the northern desert, Drift Cloud Town, Yi Clan Estate. Within a quiet little courtyard was a young woman around the age of 16 or 17 who was pacing up and down. The young woman had a pretty and delicate appearance, and even though she couldn't be considered to be peerlessly beautiful, she was a rare beauty. But the young woman's brows were knit tightly together at this moment. This won't do. I won't marry him even if I die. The young woman gritted her teeth and had a resolute expression. Where is this? Suddenly, a confused mutter sounded out from within the room on the left in the little courtyard. The young woman's eyes lit up when she heard this voice, and she hurriedly entered into the room. You've awoken. The young woman looked at the violet-clothed young man that was sitting up with difficulty, and her intelligent eyes were suffused with an extraordinary splendor. She was filled with heartfelt admiration towards this man that was able to lay on the bed for the greater part of a month, yet still be able to survive. You are Duan Lingtian shook his slightly dizzy head. His stiff body gave him an extremely unfamiliar feeling, as if he needed to adapt to it once more, and he revealed a puzzled expression as he looked at the young woman before him. I'm Yizan. The young woman smiled lightly before sighing. You really can sleep. If I count from the day I found you, you've already slept for 18 days. 18 days? You said I've been unconscious for 18 days. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted, and he revealed an astonished expression. At the same time, with a command in his heart, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief after he noticed the Devilseal tablet lay silently within his spatial ring. His memory was still at the moment he withdrew the Devilseal tablet that day. He still remembered that after he pressed his hand onto the Devilseal tablet, a strange energy suddenly gushed out of the Devilseal tablet and fused into his arm. In the blink of an eye, he lost all feeling in his arm. When he recovered from his shock, he felt a wave of piercing pain in his soul, and then he completely lost all consciousness. After he lost consciousness, he seemed to have fallen into a state of deep sleep, and under this state, he had an extremely strange dream. In that dream, his body was completely out of his control. Moreover, he transformed to possess violet hair and scarlet red eyes, causing him to look like a peerless king of devils. In the dream, he killed the 6 elders of Skywolf Fort, and in the end, he even saw Feng Wudao. He also remembered that the him in the dream wanted to kill Feng Wudao on many occasions, and it was he who exerted all his strength to restrain himself. As he restrained and restrained, he once again lost consciousness. When he woke next, he noticed that he was within this small room, and he even saw a young woman with a delicate and pretty appearance. Based on what the young woman said, it seemed like she'd saved him. Moreover, he'd slept for 18 days. Yes. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian saw the young woman nod, and based on her appearance, she obviously wasn't lying and seemed to have no reason to lie. Duan Lingtian shook his splitting head, and he took a deep breath before asking. Can you tell me what happened when you encountered me? I don't remember. The young woman nodded, and then she said, when I encountered you, you were lying in a bed of reeds. I just happened to pass by and saw you, and I noticed you hadn't died, so I brought you back. When she spoke up to hear, the young woman laughed lightly. Your figure seems quite balanced, yet I never imagined that you would be rather heavy. Duan Lingtian laughed embarrassedly, and then he asked. Where is this? This is my home, the Drift Cloud Town's Yi clan. The young woman spoke, and then asked. Right, I've already told you my name, yet you haven't told me yours. I'm Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's mouth slightly split open and revealed a brilliant smile. Thank you for saving me. Duan Lingtian. Then I'll call you Big Brother Duan, you can call me Little Zan. Yizan smiled lightly. Alright, Little Zan. Duan Lingtian nodded. Big Brother Duan, you've slept for 18 days, so you're surely hungry, right? I'll go prepare food for you. Yizan spoke and didn't wait for Duan Lingtian to answer before hurriedly leaving the room in the little courtyard. She's really a kind and good young lady. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly, then he controlled his body that he wasn't so accustomed to and got off his bed before walking out of the room, and then he stretched his body in the little courtyard. What exactly happened? How did I escape from the claws of those 6 elders? After he felt that he'd once again gotten accustomed to his body, Duan Lingtian's brows frowned slightly as he'd completely forgotten had happened earlier. There's also that strange dream, could it be that everything in the dream was true? Suddenly, a crazy thought like this arose in Duan Lingtian's heart for no reason or rhyme, and after this thought arose, it was impossible to suppress and seemed as if the truth was really so. If that dream was real, isn't the Devilseal tablet too abnormal? As Duan Lingtian muttered to himself, he withdrew the Devilseal tablet from his spatial ring. The Devilseal tablet was cold to his touch, and it gave Duan Lingtian a feeling as if they were intimately linked. Can you tell me if all that is true? Duan Lingtian looked at the Devilseal tablet and asked, and he seemed to be preaching to deaf ears. When he saw no reaction from the Devilseal tablet, Duan Lingtian put it away and muttered. Based on what I know now, all of that might be real, otherwise, it would be impossible for me to survive under the siege of 6 Skywolf Fort elders. The violet-haired and scarlet red-eyed me in the dream had a strength so strong, it far surpassed Senior. The Senior Duan Lingtian mentioned was precisely the vice-sect master of the Blade Sect, Sword 13, an existence at the 9th level of the Void Transformation stage. Moreover, even if it was amongst the numerous existences at the 9th level of the Void Transformation stage, Sword 13's strength would at least be above average. This was something that could be perceived from Sword 13's ability to go against the joint forces of a 9th-level Void Transformation Stage and an 8th-level Void Transformation Stage Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort. The me in the dream had a strength that's probably at the Martial Monarch stage. Duan Lingtian recalled the extremely clear dream and muttered to himself. Tom Yu. Suddenly, with a turn of his thoughts, he recalled Tom Yu, who'd blocked the strike of a Skywolf Fort Elder for him and died before his eyes. If everything in the dream was true, then Tom Yu could be said to have saved him. Because Tom Yu had one time for him and allowed him to rely on the strength of the Devilseal tablet to kill the 6 elders and escape danger.